Chapter 1303. However, Tang Ao was powerless against the striped leopard. Tang Ao had yet to recover from his previous battle with Ho Tianlin and his brother. Even before Tang Ao had a chance to catch his breath, he had already encountered the striped leopard. Although they had managed to suppress the leopard by joining forces, it was too powerful. Even after such a long time, they still hadn't managed to inflict any damage on it. Not only had they failed to inflict any damage on the striped leopard, but the martial artists on their side had also been killed by it. If this continued, Tang Ao reckoned that all the martial artists on his side would be killed before the striped leopard was killed. Tang Ao could also see that there were many martial artists surrounding the striped leopard. However, only a few of them had displayed their true abilities. There were a few martial artists who had been attacking the striped leopard from afar. Once the striped leopard approached them, they would retreat even further away before it could even get close. When their attacks landed on the striped leopard's body, they did not even cause it to scratch. According to Tang Ao's original plan, with so many martial artists working together, they should have been able to take down the striped leopard without any problems. However, everyone had their own ideas and were unable to work as one. This resulted in the first few martial artists who had attacked the striped leopard with all their might dying tragically. After witnessing this scene, one of the martial artists hesitated for a moment before fleeing into the distance. However, before he could get far, the striped leopard spat out a ball of light, turning it into a rain of blood. The stench of blood stimulated the striped leopard's bestial instincts. As the striped leopard brandished its sharp claws, several more martial artists were injured. However, one of the martial artists was also fierce. When the striped leopard's claws pierced his abdomen, he used the dagger in his hand to cut a bloody wound on the striped leopard's back. This is a good chance. Tang Ao knew that this wasn't a burst of potential from the martial artist before his death. Instead, it was a wound that hadn't fully healed yet. However, the striped leopard's attack was so fierce that even Tang Ao didn't notice it. After discovering the wound, a silver light flashed in Tang Ao's hand, and the 100 battle spear soul was released by Tang Ao. Tang Ao held the 100 battle spear soul tightly with both hands and stabbed it into the wound on the striped leopard's back with great force. However, the striped leopard had become much more cautious after the previous lesson. In the face of Tang Ao's fierce attack, it didn't retreat. Instead, it moved forward and pounced on Tang Ao. 1000 Ghost Soul Lock. Facing the striped leopard's attack, Tang Ao didn't dare to be careless. At the same time, Tang Ao withdrew his spear. For black chains instantly extended from his back and collided with the striped leopard that was pouncing towards him. The striped leopard's flying claws collided with Tang Ao's 1000 Ghosts Soul Lock, creating dazzling spark. The striped leopard's claws clashed fiercely with Tang Ao's 10,000 Ghosts Lock Soul, causing dazzling sparks to fly out. At this time, Tang Ao shook his arm again and stabbed the 100 battle spear soul toward the striped leopard's eyes. However, the striped leopard was too fast, and the gap between Tang Ao and the striped leopard was slightly bigger. Therefore, before Tang Ao's attack landed on the striped leopard's body, Tang Ao felt the spear tremble and almost flew out of his hand. It was the striped leopard's terrifying claw that hit the 100 battle spear soul. This attack caused Tang Ao's 100 battle spear soul to flicker. Tang Ao didn't continue to use the 100 battle spear soul. He had too little primordial chi in his body. If he continued to use the 100 battle spear soul when his primordial chi was insufficient, the 100 battle spear soul might be smashed by the striped leopard on the spot. Chapter 1304. Rumble. The sound of essence energy explosions wreaked havoc, and the powerful essence energy storm caused the surrounding houses to collapse. The ground had also become riddled with holes due to the battle between Tang Ao's group and the striped leopard. Strong winds howled and roars shook the heavens. Tang Ao felt it was a pity that his attack had failed. This striped leopard was too strong, and he had managed to inflict a small wound on it with great difficulty. If he did not make full use of it, his group would have no chance of winning. However, this striped leopard's intelligence was not low. Even Tang Ao's sneak attack had failed. Although the others had the same idea as Tang Ao, their attacks were also blocked by the striped leopard. Tang Ao secretly frowned. If the fight continued like this, forget about killing the striped leopard, even half of the cultivators present might not be able to leave this place alive. Poochie! But at this moment, the situation took a turn for the better. As the striped leopard rushed towards Tang Ao, Situ Qianqian, who was standing to one side, took advantage of the gap and stabbed the long sword in her hand into the wound of the striped leopard. Suddenly, hot blood splashed out, and the striped leopard issued a miserable roar. Immediately, its claws broke Situ Qianqian's long sword. After being injured, the striped leopard roared and bit Situ Qianqian in its mouth. Then, it madly rushed into the distance. This scene was beyond everyone's expectations, and the seventh great uncle immediately shouted, "Striped leopards are the most vengeful. This girl has injured it. The consequences will be disastrous. Quickly stop her." As the seventh great uncle's voice faded, the two cultivators near the striped leopard hesitated for a moment. But in the end, they braced themselves and rushed forward to block the striped leopard. However, before they could even approach the striped leopard, two sharp claws pounced on them and smashed their heads on the spot. Blood splashed out, and the bodies of the two cultivators softly fell to the ground, without the slightest trace of vitality. Suddenly, Tang Ao's figure flashed and a silvery radiance flashed out from his hand. Tang Ao released the 100 Battles Spear Soul. Tang Ao fiercely threw the 100 Battles Spear Soul towards the wound on the back of the striped leopard. This time, the striped leopard was so intent on escaping that it didn't even try to avoid Tang Ao's 100 Battles Spear Soul. However, as it moved, the 100 Battles Spear Soul had already deviated from the wound on its back. However, Tang Ao was not anxious. Instead, he was delighted. If it were an ordinary warrior, he would not be able to control his life soul as he pleased at this distance. However, Tang Ao was not one of them. Therefore, with a single thought from Tang Ao, the 100 Battles Spear Soul trembled in midair, and with a poochie sound, it pierced into the back of the striped leopard. After being pierced by Tang Ao's 100 Battles Spear Soul, the striped leopard let out a scream, and Situ Qianqian escaped from its mouth. However, at this moment, Situ Qianqian's body was trembling. Obviously, the scene just now had frightened her. This striped leopard had killed many warriors here, and the moment she was taken away by the striped leopard, Situ Qianqian thought that she was doomed. However, Situ Qianqian did not expect that Tang Ao would save her once again. Zhong Shan was right. A demonic beast like the striped leopard was indeed very vengeful. Just now, Situ Qianqian had injured it, so it attacked Situ Qianqian. This time, Tang Ao had severely injured it, so it immediately chased after Tang Ao. Tang Ao was not frightened by the striped leopard's aura. When he saw the striped leopard chasing after him, Tang Ao took a step and flew towards a forest in the distance. Chapter 1305. The wind whistled past Tang Ao's ears, as he heard heavy panting behind him. This panting was none other than the striped leopard's. The striped leopard's speed was frighteningly fast. Even if Tang Ao flew at full speed, it could still chase after him relentlessly. What surprised Tang Ao the most was that this striped leopard had mastered a secret technique that used Yuan Qi to transform into wings. At this moment, there was a pair of transparent wings on both sides of the striped leopard's body. The striped leopard's wings flapped up and down as it flew forward for a long distance. After seeing this pair of Yuan Qi wings, Tang Ao didn't continue flying in the air because it would be easy for the striped leopard to catch up. Tang Ao plunged into the dense forest below. Tang Ao nimbly dodged the trees in the forest, but because the striped leopard was too fast, it would occasionally break one or two trees. This made the striped leopard extremely sullen, and it let out a series of roars behind Tang Ao. Later, the striped leopard stopped flying in the forest and started running on the ground. Even though it was running on the ground, the striped leopard's speed was extremely fast. Moreover, unlike flying, the striped leopard was naturally very suited for running. When the striped leopard ran in the forest, its speed was even faster than Tang Ao's flying speed. Tang Ao scanned with his remembrance, and saw the striped leopard chasing after him like a bolt of golden lightning. Tang Ao bitterly laughed and immediately summoned the battle sage Bone Life Soul. At the same time, Tang Ao consumed the 3 yuan cultivating pills that Lin Dongnan had given him not long ago. After consuming the 3 yuan cultivating pills, the pure yuan qi in the yuan cultivating pills immediately flowed through Tang Ao's body. Tang Ao refined and absorbed this yuan qi as he flew. At this moment, Tang Ao truly realized how important the yuan cultivating pills were in the hidden dragon cave. They could be used to cultivate and increase cultivation speed. At critical moments, it could also be used to recover yuan qi and maintain the ability to continue fighting. Tang Ao had already decided that when he entered the Evergreen Valley and won the bid, he would definitely think of ways to obtain more spiritual herbs to refine essence cultivating pills. Then, he would refine a large number of essence cultivating pills and carry them with him. After Tang Ao released the battle sage Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao's speed increased significantly. Although it wasn't as terrifying as the striped leopard wouldn't be able to catch up to Tang Ao anytime soon. However, Tang Ao was a bit confused. His soul remembrance kept scanning his surroundings. However, under Tang Ao's soul remembrance, this dense forest didn't have any plants. Just as Tang Ao was feeling puzzled, an emerald green vine suddenly shot out from the soil and whipped towards Tang Ao's chest. Tang Ao scanned with his soul remembrance and saw that this emerald green vine was like a poisonous snake. Although it was a plant, its head was really like a snake's head. Before the vine could hit him, Tang Ao abruptly punched out. Purring! A muffled sound rang out, and the vine was sent flying by Tang Ao's iron fist. After receiving Tang Ao's attack, the vine didn't attack again. Instead, it instantly retracted back into the ground. Tang Ao didn't mind and continued flying forward. Even if there were more of these vines ahead, Tang Ao didn't dare to stop. Compared to these vines, Tang Ao was definitely more difficult to deal with the striped leopard that was chasing relentlessly behind him. Tang Ao's powerful soul remembrance swept out. He saw that when the striped leopard passed by the ground where the vine had attacked him, the vine similarly emerged from the soil and instantly wrapped around one of the striped leopard's legs. Chapter 1306. After the striped leopard got rid of one of the vines, Tang Ao, who was flying ahead, was once again blocked by several vines. Tang Ao's eyes turned cold, and a green light bloomed behind him. Immediately, the green lotus sword soul was released by Tang Ao. The green lotus sword soul slightly trembled in the air, and instantly transformed into 7 green lotus swords. Go! Tang Ao pointed his finger, and with a low shout, the 7 green lotus swords suddenly slashed towards the vines in front of him. However, the toughness of these vines was far beyond Tang Ao's expectations. Under the attack of the green lotus swords, only white marks appeared on these vines, and they weren't like the striped leopard, which cleanly cut these green vines into several pieces. However, Tang Ao didn't seem to want to cut these vines. When the green lotus swords entangled these vines, Tang Ao had already flown far away. After Tang Ao left, with a thought, the 7 green lotus swords once again returned behind Tang Ao, floating behind Tang Ao. At this time, the striped leopard also happened to arrive. These vines didn't return to the ground this time, and instead launched a fierce attack on the striped leopard. The striped leopard had just been entangled by a vine, and now it was annoyed to see vines. especially when it saw the human who injured it getting further and further away from it. The striped leopard was very annoyed. A cold glint flashed on the striped leopard's sharp claws when it saw the vines pouncing towards it. Soon after, the striped leopard unceremoniously waved its claws and cut the vines into pieces as if it was chopping vegetables. Pooh, pooh, as Tang Ao went deeper, the surrounding vines also increased. Tang Ao's remembrance had been covering the surroundings, so when the two strange sounds rang out, Tang Ao discovered two vines attacking him. Although these two vines weren't many, Tang Ao felt that it was a bit unusual. This was because Tang Ao actually felt a wave of yuan qi from these two vines. From the vital qi undulations on their bodies, Tang Ao could determine that these two vines were shockingly at the third level of the body refining realm. And this body refining realm third level vine was indeed not simple. In an instant it arrived in front of Tang Ao. Without understanding the situation, Tang Ao did not dare to rashly come into contact with this kind of vine. Before the vines could hit him, Tang Ao's green lotus sword soul greeted the two vines. Then, Tang Ao was surprised to see that his green lotus sword soul actually created a series of sparks when it slashed at the vines, but it still couldn't cut through the vines. Although he was surprised, it was within Tang Ao's expectations. After all, the green lotus sword soul was unable to cut those seemingly weak vines. At the same time, Tang Ao also knew that this wasn't because the vines were too strong, but because he was too weak. If Tang Ao was at his peak, the green lotus sword soul could explode with the terrifying fighting strength of 29 levels of the sky. In that situation, let alone cutting these two small vines, as long as Tang Ao was willing, the entire forest could be instantly destroyed by the green lotus sword soul's terrifying sword aura. However, right now, both Tang Ao and the green lotus sword soul were in an extremely weak state. Therefore, when the green lotus sword soul faced these vines, it felt extremely powerless. However, every time the green lotus sword soul stalled these vines, Tang Ao was able to calmly leave. After Tang Ao left, the green lotus sword soul flew back behind Tang Ao. Chapter 1307. Tang Ao thought back to how the striped leopard had easily killed a 5th-level body refining realm martial artist in Qing Yun's village, so he didn't find it strange anymore. However, what Tang Ao didn't understand was that, after the striped leopard cut through the vines, it didn't continue chasing him. Instead, it looked around vigilantly. Seeing this, Tang Ao naturally didn't think that the striped leopard was deliberately mystifying him. This was because Tang Ao knew that with the striped leopard's intelligence, it couldn't do this. Since the striped leopard had stopped on its own, it meant that there was something wrong with this forest. Thinking of this, Tang Ao's incomparably powerful soul remembrance was instantly released. Like a gale sweeping up fallen leaves, it spread out in all directions. Under Tang Ao's soul remembrance, Tang Ao really did see a few vines dancing in the forest. Aside from this, Tang Ao didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Just as Tang Ao was thinking of this, Tang Ao abruptly noticed that under the ground between him and the striped leopard, there was an extremely obscure ripple that had just spread out. Tang Ao immediately used his heavenly polar pupils to investigate. Immediately, Tang Ao jumped in fright. Tang Ao didn't think too much about it. When he saw what was under the soil, he instantly retreated. The striped leopard in front of Tang Ao also suddenly pounced from the side. Immediately, two cyan blade auras with terrifying auras flew towards where Tang Ao and the striped leopard were. The auras were incomparably sharp, and only after cutting down over 10 thick trees behind them did they disappear. At this moment, the ground between Tang Ao and the striped leopard cracked open. Immediately, a figure emerged from the ground. Tang Ao found it hard to believe that the figure that had emerged from the ground was actually a person. However, this person was extremely terrifying. His body was completely bare, and he wasn't wearing any clothes. However, his skin was very rough, just like tree bark. Furthermore, there were vines connected to his body. Tang Ao had used his sky polarity eyes to confirm that this wasn't a monster formed by the vines. Instead, this thing that looked neither human nor ghost was really a person. Tang Ao dared to guarantee that if a less courageous martial artist saw this vine man, they would immediately faint from fright. However, Tang Ao was by no means a timid martial artist. Not only was Tang Ao not timid, but he was also extraordinarily bold. Therefore, after the vine man appeared, Tang Ao was still thinking about how to talk to it. However, this martial artist with vines attached to his body was not very friendly. Tang Ao only heard him growl, and immediately after, countless vines flew out from the ground and attacked Tang Ao and the striped leopard. "My friend, please calm down. I am Tang Ao of the Qing Yun Union. I have mistakenly entered this place. I hope my friend will be magnanimous." If these vines were ownerless, Tang Ao would naturally be able to deal with them calmly. However, at this moment it seemed that these vines had a great connection with this mysterious man. Therefore, Tang Ao also wanted to resolve this problem through communication. After all, Tang Ao didn't have any conflicts of interest with this fellow. Moreover, he could be considered to have attracted a body-refining realm level 7 striped leopard here to be his prey. At this moment, Tang Ao didn't want to fight the striped leopard, nor did he want to fight this strange man. In Tang Ao's opinion, it would be best for this mysterious man to fight the striped leopard, and then he would take the opportunity to escape from this forest. However, while Tang Ao's thoughts were good, the man controlling the vines didn't seem to have any intention of letting Tang Ao leave. Therefore, after Tang Ao spoke, the vines continued to attack Tang Ao without slowing down. Chapter 1308. It was obvious that this vine man knew that compared to Tang Ao, the striped leopard was his biggest enemy. It was just that this vine man's attack style was too simple, or it could be said that the striped leopard was able to restrain it. No matter how the vine man attacked the striped leopard could always wave its claws to resolve the crisis. Tang Ao did not have any thoughts of fighting this vine man. In Tang Ao's opinion, there was no point in fighting this vine man. Therefore, while the vine man was fighting the striped leopard, Tang Ao wanted to take the chance to escape. But this vine man clearly did not plan on letting Tang Ao leave. Tang Ao had not even taken a few steps when a circle of vines burst out from the surrounding soil, surrounding Tang Ao in the center. After these vines appeared, they unceremoniously attacked Tang Ao. This time Tang Ao did not use the green lotus sword soul to attack, but summoned 2 netherworld flames to float on his left and right side. These 2 netherworld flames had been connected to Tang Ao and had swallowed countless flames to evolve. Because Tang Ao's cultivation was limited, he could not use his strongest power, but the terrifying temperature of the netherworld flames still caused the surrounding vines to pause for a moment. But it only paused for a moment before these vines charged at Tang Ao again. This time Tang Ao did not continue to dodge. Fire subduing wood was an unchanging principle. Tang Ao did not believe that his netherworld flames could not control these vines. Therefore, with just a thought from Tang Ao, the netherworld flames floating on Tang Ao's side suddenly rose, instantly turning into a wall of fire. This wall of fire surrounded Tang Ao in the center, and the surrounding vines attacking Tang Ao also rushed into the wall of fire. Even if these vines were strange, their attribute suppression still existed. Therefore, after these vines rushed into the sea of fire, Tang Ao heard bursts of explosions, and at the same time, he smelled a burning smell. The vine man, who was focused on fighting the striped leopard, obviously also noticed the abnormality on Tang Ao's side. He immediately roared, and the surging energy on his body immediately erupted. As his energy erupted, the vines that were previously in a daze suddenly became energetic, and the aura on their bodies also boiled in an instant. And this was not the end. Tang Ao saw that at the location of his heart, 3 blood-colored vines quietly grew. These 3 blood-colored vines were like 3 blood snakes, and after growing to a certain extent, they sank into the ground. Even so, Tang Ao, who had the sky-polar eyes, still knew that these 3 blood-colored vines were coming for him. Sure enough, just as this thought flashed in Tang Ao's mind, the 3 blood-colored vines broke out of the ground in front of Tang Ao, and then rushed toward Tang Ao. Compared to ordinary vines, the speed of these 3 vines was more than 10 times faster. Tang Ao only saw a flash of blood-colored light, and then the 3 vines immediately flew to the wall of fire. The terrifying temperature of the netherworld flame immediately spread to the 3 blood-colored vines, and then Tang Ao saw the netherworld flame not fail to disappoint the blood-colored vines, but Tang Ao was not happy for too long. Tang Ao saw that the 3 blood-colored vines were rapidly reforming as they melted. Tang Ao did not expect these blood-colored vines to have this kind of ability. Although the netherworld flame was powerful, the power of the netherworld flame was limited, and it could not instantly burn these blood-colored vines. The most terrifying thing was that, after these 3 vines gradually adapted to the netherworld flame, they actually began to devour the netherworld flame. Chapter 1309. At this time, the striped leopard and Tang Ao had a tacit understanding. When Tang Ao escaped, the striped leopard cooperated and escaped in the opposite direction. To the Vine Man, after seeing his true body, Tang Ao and the striped leopard, he wanted to kill them both. However, with Tang Ao and the striped leopard escaping in different directions, he couldn't chase after them. Moreover, his current abilities were limited, and he couldn't control all the demon vines in this forest. After thinking for a moment, the Vine Man gave up on Tang Ao. Compared to Tang Ao, the body-refining realm's 7th level striped leopard was more attractive to the Vine Man. As long as he could devour the striped leopard's flesh, his cultivation would increase again. As his cultivation increased, the number of demon vines he could control would increase, and the demon vines would grow stronger. Therefore, compared to the striped leopard, the body-refining realm 5th level Tang Ao wasn't much. Moreover, the Vine Man believed that even if he didn't interfere, the vines in this forest would still attack Tang Ao. Moreover, aside from the vines, this forest also had vine snakes. With Tang Ao's body-refining realm 5th level cultivation, it was impossible for him to walk out of this forest. As for why Tang Ao was able to walk into this forest, the Vine Man believed that it was most likely because of the striped leopard. Now that the striped leopard had escaped, it was impossible for Tang Ao to walk out. Ignoring Tang Ao, the Vine Man directly dove into the soil and chased after the striped leopard. Tang Ao swept out with his sole remembrance and discovered that the vine monster wasn't chasing him. He was instantly happy. Tang Ao silently sighed. This time, the unlucky one wasn't him. If Tang Ao encountered something unlucky at any time, Tang Ao really wouldn't be able to take it. Without the Vine Man's control, the 3 blood-colored vines abruptly burrowed into the soil and disappeared. Tang Ao didn't dare waste any time and immediately fled into the distance. However, this time, Tang Ao summoned his netherworld flame, creating a flame barrier around him. Tang Ao hid in the flame barrier and continued to fly forward. Tang Ao used his sole remembrance to investigate and found that this forest had a boundary. With Tang Ao's flying speed, he only needed to fly for an hour before Tang Ao could completely leave this forest. However, this forest was easy to enter but hard to leave. Tang Ao didn't fly for long before he hastily stopped. This was because in front of him, there was a huge azure python as tall as a tree. This python's eyes were like lanterns as it stared at Tang Ao. There were also some small snakes swimming around Juwon. After sensing Tang Ao's presence, these small snakes instantly pounced on Tang Ao as if they wanted to tear him apart. However, these snakes weren't afraid of fire like he had imagined. After being burned by the netherworld flame, these snakes instantly charged at Tang Ao as if they wanted to rip him to shreds. But these little snakes were obviously not afraid of fire. After being burned by the netherworld flame, these little snakes actually stared at the netherworld flame and attacked Tang Ao. However, these snakes weren't afraid of fire like he had imagined. After being burned by the netherworld flame, these snakes actually stared at the netherworld flame and began to attack Tang Ao. Tang Ao hated demonic beasts the most, and they were snake-type demonic beasts. Now that the striped leopard had left, Qin Yun Village's crisis had been resolved. Therefore, Tang Ao naturally wouldn't continue fighting. This was because there was no meaning to Tang Ao and it would only be a waste of energy. Therefore, Tang Ao didn't have any thoughts of tangling with these pythons. After using the flame barrier to hide himself, Tang Ao immediately changed directions and fled. Chapter 13:10. Although a few vines would occasionally fly out to block him, under the search of Tang Ao's soul remembrance, Tang Ao was already very close to the edge of this forest. As long as he left this forest, there would be no more strange vines. Then, Tang Ao would be able to safely return to Qin Yun Village. After resting in Qin Yun Village for a while, Tang Ao prepared to go with Situ Qianqian to Evergreen Valley to try their luck. All of the treasures and materials in the Hidden Dragon Cave came from Evergreen Valley. Therefore, Tang Ao wanted to see what kind of place Evergreen Valley was. As Tang Ao was thinking about this, Tang Ao suddenly heard a low roar from below. Using his soul remembrance, Tang Ao discovered an extremely cute small white tiger and a vine snake confronting each other. This vine snake wasn't as big as the one Tang Ao just saw, but when it stood up, it was as tall as a person. As for the small white tiger confronting this vine snake, it was a small ice tiger cub. This small tiger was only the size of a normal dog. For some reason, it had entered this forest. Moreover, its luck was very bad. Just as it reached the edge of the forest, it was entangled by a vine. Moreover, after it was entangled by the vine, before it could struggle free, it encountered another vine snake. The vine snake greedily looked at the small tiger bound by the vine. The small ice tiger let out a series of immature roars, as if warning the vine snake not to approach it. Tang Ao saw this and found it interesting. At this time, the vine snake naturally wouldn't care about the ice tiger's warning. Therefore, it opened its bloody mouth and bit at the ice tiger's neck. Seeing the vine snake coming at it, the small ice tiger abruptly opened its mouth and immediately spat out a cold air. Seeing this cold air, Tang Ao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This small fellow clearly wanted to use the cold air to form an ice spear to deal with the vine snake. However, it was too small and didn't have a good grasp of its own talent. At this crucial moment, it couldn't use the cold air to form ice. However, what the ice tiger didn't expect was that the cold air it spat out didn't form ice under its control. However, when it looked at the ball of cold air, the ball of cold air suddenly condensed. This change gave the small ice tiger a fright. Of course, there was a reason for this change. This change gave the small ice tiger a fright. Of course, there was a reason for this change. After transforming the ice tiger's ice spear into an ice chain, Tang Ao's eyes flashed with a cold light. Immediately, an ancient halberd made of ice suddenly appeared above Tang Ao's head. This attack was somewhat similar to Ho Tianlin's attack not long ago. However, Tang Ao knew that his current cultivation was still far from Ho Tianlin's attack. At that time, if it wasn't for his sky polarity eyes, which blocked the power of the ice halberd, Tang Ao would have died long ago. Although this attack of Tang Ao's wasn't as strong as Ho Tianlin's, it was more than enough to deal with this vine snake that was only at the 6th level of the body refining realm. Under the ice tiger's gaze, the ancient halberd above Tang Ao's head flashed. When it reappeared, it had already pinned the vine snake to the ground. After killing the vine snake, Tang Ao went to the side of the small ice tiger. At this moment, the small ice tiger was really cute. It was only the size of 2 palms. Seeing Tang Ao come over, the small fellow also let out a warning growl. Chapter 13:11. After the little ice tiger was blocked by Tang Ao's battle sage Bone Life Soul, it immediately pouted in anger. It looked extremely adorable. Seeing this little guy, Tang Ao couldn't help but think of Tang Hur. Back in the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm, Tang Hur and Tang Yu had been swept into another plane by the spatial turbulence. Tang Ao had originally planned on visiting them after recovering from his injuries, but until now, Tang Ao's injuries had yet to fully recover. With a helpless sigh, Tang Ao shot out a sword chi from his fingertip. With a poof, it cut off the vines that bound the ice tiger. The cut was as smooth as a mirror. One could imagine the power of the sword chi. Tang Ao's green lotus sword chi might not have been able to deal with the vines, but it was not a problem for it to deal with these ordinary vines. After Tang Ao cut off the vines, the ice tiger cub immediately fell. The little guy got up and immediately took a few steps back, distancing himself from Tang Ao. Although Tang Ao had just saved him, the little guy seemed to be a little afraid of human warriors. Tang Ao still didn't understand a monster like the ice tiger. When the ice tiger was still in its infancy, the mother would never leave the little ice tiger. Now that the little ice tiger was traveling alone in the forest, it was obvious that something had happened to the mother. After some thought, Tang Ao decided to bring the little guy back to Qin Yun's village to raise. "Little guy, are you willing to go with me?" Tang Ao tried his best to ask in a gentle tone. However, after Tang Ao asked the question, the little ice tiger still looked at Tang Ao warily. Tang Ao knew that the little guy still couldn't speak, but with its intelligence, it would have no problem understanding his words. The reason why it was acting like this was because the little guy still didn't trust him. Even so, Tang Ao didn't mind. Monstrous beasts and human warriors were in a competitive or even hostile relationship. Most of the monstrous beasts had very low intelligence. Only a small number of monstrous beasts with high intelligence could live in harmony with humans and mutually benefit each other. Moreover, the glacial tiger was one of these beasts. Therefore, when Tang Ao saw this glacial tiger cub, he had the idea of raising it. While the little ice tiger was still staring warily at Tang Ao, a pale green light appeared on Tang Ao's hand. These pulsating spots of light were like lively fairies. They danced around the ice tiger and wrapped it up. These faint green spots of light were none other than Tang Ao's jade bone life soul. Since the little ice tiger was trapped by the vines, it had some injuries on its body. However, these injuries were quickly healed by the jade bone life soul's healing power. After its injuries were healed, the little ice tiger stared blankly at its red and swollen paws. Its eyes were filled with disbelief. Seeing its cute appearance, Tang Ao took out a pale green elixir from his storage ring. This was a first-grade spirit beast elixir. Of course, Tang Ao had higher-grade spirit beast elixirs on him. However, because of 2 concerns, Tang Ao didn't take them out. Many of the elixirs on Tang Ao's body were refined in the black-yellow continent and the ice and snow plains. Although these elixirs could still be used in the Flying Star continent, as long as the elixirs were taken out of the chaotic hexagram mirror, even if they were placed in a storage ring, the elixirs that were originally 100% effective would instantly become 1 to 30% effective. A Dan that was originally of the 10th rank would instantly be reduced to a 3rd rank. The higher the rank of the Dan, the more affected it would be. Another thing was that the little ice tiger was only at the 1st level of the body refining realm. The little guy wouldn't be able to withstand the effects of high-grade elixirs. Chapter 13:12. Just as the glacial tiger was thinking about how to get the pill, Tang Ao brought the pill to its mouth. This time, the little fellow was overjoyed. After it took the pill with its small claws, the glacial tiger couldn't wait to put the spirit beast pill in its mouth. The spirit beast pill melted in its mouth, and an unprecedented cool and refreshing feeling spread throughout the glacial tiger's body. Under this aura, every cell in its body seemed to be glowing with vitality. "Little fellow, come with me." Looking at the glacial tiger's intoxicated appearance, Tang Ao didn't miss the opportunity to say this. When he said this, Tang Ao felt strange. This scene seemed like he was coaxing a child. However, Tang Ao had to admit that the effect of the spirit beast pill was really good. After taking a spirit beast pill, the glacial tiger immediately ran towards Tang Ao and rubbed itself against Tang Ao. Its big watery eyes looked at Tang Ao's storage ring. Because Tang Ao's spirit beast pill was taken out from the storage ring, this little fellow obviously wanted to eat more spirit beast pills. Tang Ao picked up the glacial tiger and patted its small head. "Come back with me. In the future, there will be more spirit beast pills for you." This time, the glacial tiger was very obedient. It burrowed into Tang Ao's arms and fell asleep. It was difficult for monster beasts to establish trust with humans, but once trust was established, monster beasts would unreservedly believe in humans. Just like the current glacial tiger, it trusted Tang Ao very much. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so confident and bold as to sleep in Tang Ao's arms. At this time, Tang Ao was already at the edge of the strange mountain forest, so Tang Ao quickly walked out. After leaving the mountain forest, Tang Ao didn't immediately return to Qin Yun's village. Instead, he took out a huge animal skin scroll from the storage ring. The animal skin scroll was bare, there was nothing on it. Then, Tang Ao took out a rune pen and started ticking on the animal skin roll. Tang Ao had been in the hidden dragon cave for a long time, so he had a good understanding of the hidden dragon cave. At the same time, Tang Ao had also been to many places in the hidden dragon cave. However, Tang Ao had never seen a martial artist draw a map of the hidden dragon crypt. Or it could be said that for most warriors, being able to survive in the hidden dragon crypt was already pretty good. How could they have the leisure to map out the hidden dragon crypt? For those powerful warriors, they were safe no matter where they went. Therefore, they didn't need a map at all. Naturally, they wouldn't waste any effort to map the hidden dragon crypt. But Tang Ao was different. Tang Ao's external injuries had all recovered, but Tang Ao's internal injuries obviously couldn't recover in this place, so Tang Ao definitely wouldn't stay in the hidden dragon crypt for too long. If other warriors wanted to leave the hidden dragon crypt, even if they cultivated to the pinnacle of the body refining realm, it might not be that easy. This was because among the top warriors guarding the hidden dragon crypt, there were 4 experts at the pinnacle of the body refining realm. Just like Shadowless and Su Hongyi that Tang Ao had seen before. At the 9th level of the body refining realm, these 2 might not be the strongest, but they were also the cream of the crop. In the 7 Kills sect, disciples with this kind of dance talent could also be considered core disciples. In the Flying Star continent, perhaps because there was no spiritual chi here, only those with the most outstanding martial arts talent could cultivate and survive. Chapter 13:13. It was not an exaggeration to say that any martial artist who could cultivate on the Flying Star continent would at least be an inner sect disciple in any sect in the Black-Yellow continent. There was even a group of people, including Ho Tianlin and Ho Tianxi, who had fought with Tang Ao not long ago. Even the core disciples of many sects might not be as talented as the 2 of them. Although the Black-Yellow continent also had the law of the jungle, compared to the Flying Star continent, the Black-Yellow continent was much more suitable for survival. On the Black-Yellow continent, the number of ordinary people and martial artists who could not cultivate was basically the same. In fact, there were many places where there were no martial artists at all. However, on the Flying Star continent, the people there were basically all martial artists. The number of ordinary people did not even reach 30% of the total population. Moreover, among these ordinary people, it was not that they could not cultivate. It was just that their martial arts talent was too poor, so they gave up on cultivating. However, their martial arts talent was also relatively poor. If there was spirit energy here, their cultivation speed would still make many people feel ashamed. While thinking about these things, Tang Ao drew the map in his hand. Tang Ao's dense psyche was transmitted to the rune pen in Tang Ao's hand. Immediately, mysterious runes were inserted into the map. The map that Tang Ao drew was obviously not an ordinary map. It was a rune map that could only be explored with psyche. Tang Ao had engraved the entire picture of the forest on the map, and he had also made detailed descriptions and annotations of the various vines and rattan snake. However, as for the description of the vine man in the mountain forest, Tang Ao only vaguely mentioned it. Tang Ao had his own purpose for drawing this map. After the map was drawn, Tang Ao was going to sell it. Although Tang Ao knew that the Evergreen Valley had spirit herbs that could be used to refine the essence cultivating elixir, it was still unknown whether he would be able to find them after entering the Evergreen Valley. Therefore, Tang Ao had to make two preparations. One was to collect information about the Evergreen Valley to increase the probability of obtaining spiritual herbs after entering the Evergreen Valley. Although the Evergreen Valley was a treasure trove, it wasn't free to enter. Every time he entered the Evergreen Valley, he would have to pay the price of a mid-grade vitality augmenting pill. Although Tang Ao had obtained quite a number of substandard medial grade vitality cultivating pills after entering the Hidden Dragon Crypt, and the quantity was not small. But this did not mean that middle grade essence cultivating pills were not precious in the Dragon Subduing Crypt. On the contrary, in the Dragon Subduing Crypt, middle-grade essence cultivating pills were already considered very precious things. Although the Dragon Prison Castle imprisoned these warriors here, forcing them to expel their blood essence and enter the Evergreen Valley to search for spiritual materials every month, the Dragon Prison Castle did not allow these warriors to enter the Evergreen Valley. However, every month, Prison Dragon Castle would distribute cultivation resources to these cultivators. As long as they handed in a drop of their blood essence on time, each cultivator would receive at least 1 mid-grade vitality raising pill and 10 low-grade vitality raising pills, which was equivalent to 2 vitality raising pills. Moreover, this was only a conservative estimate. If a martial artist was willing to spend time and energy to condense their own blood essence within a month, they would be able to obtain more cultivation resources if their blood essence was of a higher grade. Just like when Shadowless felt that Tang Ao's essence blood was not bad, he rewarded him with 3 middle-grade energy nourishing pills. Chapter 13-14. Tang Ao's method just happened to fill this gap. Tang Ao had already made up his mind. This map was split into 3 levels. The basic map only depicted the general appearance of the hidden dragon caves and the dangerous areas within. There naturally weren't any details. This kind of map didn't sound very useful, but in reality, it was already very useful. If it was a martial artist from the outside world, they probably wouldn't understand. However, as a martial artist in the Hidden Dragon Caves, they naturally knew the difficulty of survival. They knew where the dangerous areas were and where the dangers were. Wherever the natural energy was the weakest, there was no energy at all. Or in other words, wherever the illusion flower density was lower, it was easier to survive. This information was very important to the martial artists in the Hidden Dragon Caves. If a normal person wanted to draw a map like this, it was naturally very difficult. However, Tang Ao was different. Tang Ao's sole remembrance was dozens of streets ahead of martial artists of the same realm. Adding on Tang Ao's heavenly extreme pupils that could search the world, doing this kind of thing was extremely easy and pleasant. Moreover, in this period of time, Tang Ao had been fleeing east and west, going to quite a few places. Not long after, Tang Ao's topographic map of the Hidden Dragon Crypt took shape. However, this topographic map naturally couldn't be sold right now because its value was still too low. In the 3 levels of topographic maps that Tang Ao had planned, the basic topographic map was sold for 1 low-grade yuan cultivating pill, the middle-grade map was sold for 3 low-grade yuan cultivating pills, and the high-grade map was sold for 1 middle-grade yuan cultivating pill. The current map in Tang Ao's hands couldn't even be considered a basic one because most of the other places in the Hidden Dragon Caves hadn't been recorded by Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao didn't know much about those places, so Tang Ao couldn't just randomly write. After using a runic array to record the places he personally went to onto the beast skin map, Tang Ao identified the direction and returned to Qin Yun village. Tang Ao had just been chased by the striped leopard, and he had been fleeing in a panic. Fortunately, Tang Ao's soul remembrance was powerful, and it didn't take long for him to find the correct path. The terrain along the way was naturally recorded by Tang Ao in the animal skin roll. With the strength of Tang Ao's soul remembrance, as long as his eyes saw something, he could immediately engrave it into the beast skin scroll. However, before Tang Ao could enter the Qin Yun village, he saw a group of warriors coming out of the Qin Yun village. This scene stunned Tang Ao. When he saw Situ Qianqian in the crowd, Tang Ao's figure flashed and appeared in front of Situ Qianqian. The sudden appearance of Tang Ao startled everyone, but when they saw that it was Tang Ao, they were stunned. At this moment, everyone was preparing to set off to find Tang Ao. They didn't expect that Tang Ao would return unscathed after being chased by the striped leopard. "Senior Tang Ao, it's great that you're still alive. We were just about to go out and find you." When Situ Qianqian saw Tang Ao, she immediately ran in front of Tang Ao. Hearing Situ Qianqian's words, Tang Ao was moved. He was used to the coldness of the martial arts world, so this sudden warmth surprised Tang Ao, but he was even more moved. The reason Tang Ao dared to lure the striped leopard away wasn't because he was impulsive or hot-blooded, but because Tang Ao knew that even in the worst-case scenario, the striped leopard wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Chapter 13-15. Become the Village Chief? Tang Ao was shocked and looked at his 7th great-uncle speechlessly. Although his 7th great-uncle looked old and feeble, Tang Ao knew that this old man was not that weak. Not long ago, when he had lured away the striped leopard, Tang Ao had been hesitant about whether or not to lure it away. At that time, Tang Ao had seen that everyone else's faces were very solemn and anxious, but his 7th great-uncle, the cultivator in the wheelchair, who was called Second Mother, and the blind cultivator looked hesitant. Tang Ao knew that these 3 people were not hesitating about whether or not to escape, but whether or not to use their trump card and join forces to kill the striped leopard. However, the 3 of them had too many concerns, and Situ Qianqian was in danger at the time, so Tang Ao could not hold back and took the initiative to lure the striped leopard away before the 3 of them could. This time, these 3 people had come out to look for him, and surprisingly, these 3 people were also there. In addition, there were 2 more cultivators that Tang Ao could not see through. Although these 2 people also exuded a declining aura, Tang Ao could feel that this was just a facade. These 2 people were like his 7th great-uncle and the other 2 people, hidden experts. "Yes, we are going to make you the village chief of Qin Yun village. Why are you not willing? Let me tell you, don't think that the position of village chief is too small. You must know that although Qin Yun village belongs to the Qin Yun Union, the Qin Yun Union never manages the development of Qin Yun village. Only when Qin Yun village is in trouble may the cultivators of the Qin Yun Union come to the rescue." Having said this, his 7th great-uncle paused for a moment and then immediately continued, "As long as you become the village chief of Qin Yun village, you will have the final say in the village from now on. Although this village chief is not as prestigious as Lin Dongnan or Ho Yaoing, the benefits are not small." Before 7th great-uncle could continue, Tang Ao was already a little excited. Previously, Tang Ao had learned from Situ Qianqian that there were spiritual fields in Qin Yun village. However, according to Tang Ao's understanding, due to the lack of fertility in the spirit fields, the spirit herbs planted were also a mess. However, if the entire Qin Yun village was managed by Tang Ao, the effect would naturally be incomparable. Tang Ao was a Tier 6 spirit pill grandmaster, someone who was half a step away from becoming an immortal pill master. Tang Ao could be said to be very familiar with the characteristics of most of the spiritual grasses. Therefore, what kind of spirit field was suitable for planting, and which spirit field could be improved to increase the yield? With regards to these questions, it wasn't an exaggeration for Tang Ao to say that he could answer them with just a glance. Other than the spirit fields, there were many other places in Qin Yun village that were worth Tang Ao's exploration. However, Tang Ao didn't know what exactly he had to do as the village chief of Qin Yun village. If it was too much of a waste of time, Tang Ao wouldn't agree to become the village chief. Right now, Tang Ao didn't have much time, and there were simply too many things that Tang Ao had to do. Seventh great-uncle, what do I have to do as the village chief? Tang Ao had a good habit of asking whenever he didn't understand. Seventh great-uncle pondered for a moment and calmly said to Tang Ao, "The village chief of Qin Yun village only has to do one thing, and that is to lead the villagers to live a peaceful life." Tang Ao secretly lamented in his heart. Tang Ao absolutely didn't believe that there was such a good thing in this world. Seventh great-uncle's words were beautiful, but they could only be beautiful words. Who knew how to let everyone live a peaceful life? Moreover, Tang Ao felt that since Qin Yun village belonged to the Qin Yun Alliance, it was impossible for it to have no obligations to the Qin Yun Alliance. Chapter 13-16. Tang Ao cupped his fists at the surrounding people and said, "I have some knowledge of spirit grasses. Before entering the hidden dragon cave, I was an alchemist outside, so I have some understanding of spirit grasses." These people were different from Situ Qianqian. Although they could be trusted, they definitely couldn't be completely trusted. Therefore, Tang Ao only said he was an alchemist and didn't say he was a 9-star alchemist. Although Situ Qianqian was pure, she still understood this shallow understanding of the world. After thinking about it, Situ Qianqian felt a little happy in her heart. Tang Ao was willing to give her his alchemy jade strip, and at the same time, he also told her about his identity as a 9-star alchemist. This was because Tang Ao trusted her. "You're an alchemist?" After Tang Ao said that he was an alchemist, without waiting for Tang Ao to continue speaking, seventh great-uncle's muddy old eyes flashed with a trace of brilliance. Tang Ao already knew that this Qin Yun village wasn't as simple as it seemed, so he still nodded. Sometimes, hiding too much wasn't a good thing. Exposing his identity as an alchemist might lead to some danger. However, along with danger, he would also receive better treatment. Indeed, after getting Tang Ao's confirmation, seventh uncle said in a low voice, "Let's go to the basement." As he said this, a powerful soul remembrance swept out in all directions from seventh great-uncle's body. In that instant, seventh great-uncle wasn't some body refining realm martial artist at all. Instead, the powerful aura of the peak of the body refining realm on his body was instantly revealed. After feeling seventh uncle's surging soul remembrance, Tang Ao smiled bitterly. Previously, he felt that seventh uncle and the other two should have the ability to deal with the striped leopard. Now, it seemed like there was no need for the three of them to attack together. Just seventh great-uncle alone was enough to make that striped leopard suffer. Moreover, Tang Ao somewhat admired seventh great-uncle's use of soul remembrance. Although seventh great-uncle's soul remembrance was incomparably powerful, it wasn't something normal people could sense. Only those who were extremely sensitive to soul remembrance could sense this surging soul remembrance. After seeing the bitter smile on Tang Ao's face, seventh great-uncle was also quite satisfied. Those who were sensitive to soul remembrance naturally had to be alchemists. Tang Ao was able to instantly sense seventh great-uncle's soul remembrance, which was enough to show how powerful Tang Ao's soul remembrance was. Even if a normal martial artist's soul remembrance was slightly more outstanding than a martial artist of the same rank, it wouldn't be by much. However, alchemists who frequently used soul remembrance to concoct pills were different. Most alchemists were born with powerful soul remembrance. Adding on the fact that they constantly used soul remembrance, their soul remembrance naturally became more and more terrifying. Of course, Tang Ao wasn't the only one who felt seventh great-uncle's soul remembrance. The sleeping ice tiger in Tang Ao's arms also seemed to sense something. With a grunt, it popped its small head out of Tang Ao's arms. Its drowsy appearance caused Situ Qianqian's eyes to flicker with light. Girls didn't have much resistance against such cute demonic beasts. Moreover, a young ice tiger was indeed very cute. This is a ice tiger cub? Seventh great-uncle recognized the ice tiger the moment he saw it. After the ice tiger reached adulthood, it would change a lot. Moreover, the ice tiger cub would only follow the mother tiger during its infancy. Therefore, ordinary martial artists rarely saw the ice tiger cub. Seventh great-uncle was able to recognize at a glance that the white and chubby little white tiger in Tang Ao's arms was a ice tiger cub. This wasn't easy. From another perspective, this showed that seventh great-uncle's knowledge was extraordinary. Chapter 13-17. Big Brother Tang Ao, can I hug it? Situ Qianqian stared at the little glacial tiger cub in Tang Ao's arms with sparkling eyes as they walked towards the underground secret room that her seventh great-uncle mentioned. Even Tang Ao had to admit that the infant glacial tiger cub was really cute. Therefore, Tang Ao didn't refuse and handed the cub over. Tang Ao thought that the cub would resist, but what Tang Ao didn't expect was that after Situ Qianqian took the cub obediently lay in Situ Qianqian's arms like a docile kitten. Tang Ao was speechless. You are an glacial tiger, a tiger. How can you behave like a kitten? However, Tang Ao didn't say this out loud. At this moment, there were a total of 9 people around Tang Ao, including Situ Qianqian. These 9 people included Zhong Shan, Lin Hu, and a sturdy young man who looked a little silly. Tang Ao knew that this sturdy young man wasn't pretending. He really was a little silly. Although this sturdy young man looked a little silly, Tang Ao didn't look down on him. This sturdy young man kept smiling foolishly and looked harmless. However, Tang Ao could tell from his aura that this guy was definitely not harmless. His aura was very calm and even, and there was a hint of murderous aura. This kind of person was definitely very terrifying. Seventh great-uncle, where are we going? This was the first time Zhong Shan had heard of the underground secret room that his seventh great-uncle had mentioned. However, Zhong Shan trusted seventh great-uncle unreservedly. This was because Zhong Shan was abandoned by his parents when he was young. It was seventh great-uncle who rescued him from Evergreen Valley. Seventh great-uncle and the others could be considered Zhong Shan's adoptive parents. We're here. Seventh great-uncle stopped at this time. Tang Ao looked up and saw that there was a very inconspicuous thatched cottage in front of seventh great-uncle. There were too many thatched cottages like this in Qingyun village, because almost all the houses in Qingyun village were like this. There was a reason why the house was built like this. Because Qingyun village was close to the Evergreen Valley, there would often be beast tide. Therefore, all the houses in the village were built with thatched cottages. When the beast tide broke out, the damage would not be too great. The cost of building thatched cottages was low, and after being damaged in the beast tide, they could be quickly rebuilt. When the beast tide broke out, most of the thatched cottages in Qingyun village were destroyed, but now it was only less than a day after the beast tide, and these thatched cottages were impressively rebuilt. Compared to the other thatched cottages, There was nothing special about this one. At least from the outside, Tang Ao couldn't see anything abnormal. Immediately after, Tang Ao used his soul remembrance to scan this thatched cottage. Then, Tang Ao saw a white-clothed youth sitting in the thatched cottage, reading a book. The instant Tang Ao's soul remembrance swept into the thatched cottage, the white-clothed youth raised his head and looked at Tang Ao. With just one look, Tang Ao felt his eyes go dizzy. The white-clothed youth's eyes seemed to have stars in them. Moreover, from this white-clothed youth's body, Tang Ao felt an aura that he didn't dare believe. Tang Ao didn't know how long it had been since he felt this aura, because this was an aura that Tang Ao had felt in Underworld Emperor's secret realm from Underworld Emperor and other turbid Heaven Realm experts. Chapter 13:18. All of a sudden, Tang Ao thought of something. The Flying Star Continent was too special. The spiritual energy that existed in other places did not exist in this place. Moreover, according to Tang Ao's understanding, there was still immortal spiritual energy above spiritual energy. However, there was no spiritual energy here, let alone immortal spiritual energy. Tang Ao had obtained Netherworld Emperor's inherited memories. Therefore, Tang Ao knew that in order to cultivate to the chaotic sky realm, it was impossible to rely on spiritual energy alone. One had to absorb and refine immortal spiritual energy. In other words, this youth in the thatched cottage was very likely to have come from a place with immortal spiritual energy. However, since he couldn't absorb and refine energy here, he looked like an ordinary person. Seventh great-uncle, isn't this young Master Shi Yun's thatched cottage? Why do you say that this is the underground secret chamber of Qing Yun village? Situ Qianqian grew up in Qing Yun village. Therefore, she was very familiar with every corner of Qing Yun village. It wasn't just Situ Qianqian. Even Zhong Shan and Lin who were somewhat confused. This was because the two of them knew that the person living here was a sickly youth. However, seventh great-uncle didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the thatched cottage. After looking at the thatched cottage, seventh great-uncle's face revealed a rare expression of respect. Seeing the change in seventh great-uncle's expression, Situ Qianqian, Zhong Shan, and Lin who were confused. Seventh great-uncle was a highly respected elder in Qing Yun village and even the Qing Yun League. However, at this moment, seventh great-uncle was looking at the thatched cottage with respect. This made Situ Qianqian's group feel very strange. Situ Qianqian's group didn't know the details of this youth called Shi Yun. However, Tang Ao did. If it wasn't for the fact that Tang Ao was sure that Shi Yun didn't have any cultivation, Tang Ao wouldn't have dared to stay here. Shi Yun had too many secrets. It was said that two God King experts fought in the Xitigarbha cemetery for the primal chaos hexagram mirror. Apart from the chaotic hexagram mirror, Tang Ao also had the underworld life soul of the 36 levels of heaven. Unlike other life souls, the 36th heaven life soul could be obtained through inheritance and devouring. Not only that, Tang Ao also had the primordial sacred heaven bow, the farmer god cauldron, the carefree sex carefree token, and half of the living soil. In addition to these worldly possessions, Tang Ao also had the 9-dragon king jade body, which even Tao masters coveted, and the sky pole pupils, which were 1 in a billion. If any of these secrets were to be exposed, it would be enough for Tang Ao to die hundreds of times. Even though Tang Ao was now a peak level 9 astral reaching realm warrior, Tang Ao would not dare to show these things around. Not to mention that Tang Ao's cultivation had been greatly reduced, and he was only at the 5th level of the body refining realm. Young Master Shi Yun, Chun Nanchi has come to pay a visit. This time I have brought 4 more people. Among them, Zhong Shan, Lin Hu, and Situ Qianqian were specifically brought by young Master Shi Yun. As for bringing little friend Tang Ao, it was this old man's idea. I hope young Master Shi Yun can forgive me. But Tang Ao, Seventh uncle still wanted to say a few good words for Tang Ao, but Shi Yun opened his mouth and said, "Seventh uncle, it's not convenient for you to say too much. Come in and have a seat." Shi Yun's tone was very gentle. Such a tone made people unable to imagine that this young man used to be a heavenly muddy realm warrior. After hearing Shi Yun's words, seventh uncle also let out a sigh of relief. This young master Shi Yun looked like an ordinary person on the surface, but his abilities were far beyond everyone's imagination. Chapter 13-19. The breakthrough in cultivation brought about an increase in lifespan. Although the increase was not much, he could at least linger on for a few more decades. However, what Chen Nanchi never expected was that this Shi Yun young master taught him several secret techniques, and even gave him a longevity-extending pill. This longevity-extending pill could extend his lifespan by 1,000 years. If it wasn't for the increasing vitality in his body, Chen Nanchi wouldn't have believed that such a pill existed in this world. However, Chen Nanchi didn't expect that the Dragon Glory Pill's grade had long surpassed his understanding of pills. This was because the Dragon Glory Pill was no longer a spirit pill, but a third-grade immortal pill. Chen Nanchi couldn't recognize it, but if Tang Ao saw it, Tang Ao would naturally be able to recognize the Dragon Glory Pill. However, Tang Ao didn't know about this. At this moment, Tang Ao wasn't in the mood to know about this. What Tang Ao wanted to know was how Shi Yun came to this place. Secondly, could it be that Shi Yun, a chaotic heaven realm expert, was trapped here and couldn't leave? If so, wouldn't he be trapped here for the rest of his life? After getting Shi Yun's permission, seventh great uncle opened the door of Shi Yun's thatched cottage and led everyone in. From the outside, Shi Yun's thatched cottage didn't look very big. However, when Tang Ao and the others entered, they were immediately shocked. This was not a thatched cottage, but a palace. This was the first time Zhong Shan and the others had come here. Seeing this sudden change, Zhong Shan, Lin Hu, and Situ Qianqian instantly became vigilant. Although Tang Ao wasn't as nervous as them, his expression also changed slightly. Just now, Tang Ao had used his soul remembrance to investigate this thatched cottage from outside, but Tang Ao didn't find any traces of an array. One had to know that although Tang Ao's cultivation had dropped severely, Tang Ao's inheritance of Yun Xiaoyao's array Dao was not just for show. Even so, when Tang Ao used his soul remembrance to investigate the thatched cottage, Tang Ao still didn't find any array in this thatched cottage. Although Tang Ao couldn't see through this array, it wasn't a problem for him to determine that it was an array. Tang Ao was secretly shocked. It seemed that even though he had inherited Yun Xiaoyao's knowledge of formations, there were still many people in this world who were more proficient than him in formations. Unlike Chen Nanchi and the others, Tang Ao had a soul sea, so Tang Ao's soul sea was far from what a normal person could compare to. Even so, when Tang Ao used his soul remembrance to investigate this cottage, he still didn't detect the existence of an array. The moment the few of them entered the thatched cottage, the array formation within the thatched cottage was quietly activated. Fortunately, this was only a spatial array formation, not a trapping array, illusion array, or even a killing array. Otherwise, Tang Ao felt that even if he had the Primal Chaos 6 light mirror, he would still fall here today. This was because Tang Ao wasn't facing a body refining realm warrior or a life and death realm warrior. Instead, he was facing a legendary Hun Tian realm warrior. Hun Tian realm warriors were also known as Emperor-level warriors. Shenong Emperor, who taught Tang Ao the alchemy Dao, Yun Xiaoyao, who taught Tang Ao blacksmithing and arrays, and Ming Di, who passed on the underworld life spirit to Tang Ao, were all great Emperor-level experts. However, he was different from these great Emperor-level experts who had fallen tens of thousands of years ago. This Shi Tianyun was a living Hun Tian realm expert. Fortunately, it seemed that Shi Tianyun didn't have any malicious intentions towards them. If he was still alive, sure Tianyun wouldn't even bother to attack them. Therefore, Tang Ao and the others were temporarily safe. However, Tang Ao didn't believe that a dignified Hun Tian realm expert would still be disdainful towards ants like them even though he had fallen to such a state. Sure Tianyun was talking to them in such a pleasant manner, so there must be some ulterior motive. Chapter 1320. It was the same now. Tang Ao wouldn't believe that Shi Yun didn't have any ulterior motives towards them. However, Tang Ao still didn't know why Shi Yun, a former muddy heavenly stage powerhouse, was hiding in a small place like Qing Yun's village. Regarding the hidden dragon crypt, Tang Ao felt that the Evergreen Valley was the only place that he didn't understand enough. In other words, if Shi Yun had any ulterior motives here, it would definitely be something in the Evergreen Valley. However, Tang Ao couldn't understand why a low-level place like the Flying Star Continent would have something that could attract a muddy heavenly stage powerhouse like Shi Yun. Moreover, Tang Ao couldn't figure out how Shi Yun ended up in the Flying Star Continent. According to Tang Ao's understanding, a casual punch from a muddy heavenly stage powerhouse like Shi Yun was not something that the Flying Star Continent could withstand. There were too many questions in Tang Ao's mind. However, Tang Ao didn't have the guts to ask Shi Yun. Unless Tang Ao was tired of living, he wouldn't look for Shi Yun and ask such a question. Because if Tang Ao asked, his origin would be exposed. Once Shi Yun came to know that he had come from another plane, and that he could even cultivate here, Tang Ao felt that Shi Yun would most likely cut him into pieces for research. You don't need to panic. This is just an ordinary spatial formation. Sit down. Shi Yun pointed at the tea table in front of him while speaking. There were 9 chairs around the tea table. Tang Ao and the others could sit down. However, after Shi Yun said this, Zhong Shan, Lin Hu, and Situ Qian didn't move. Instead, they looked at their 7th granduncle with puzzled expressions. Chen Nanchi smiled warmly at them and said, "Young Master Yun is not an ordinary person. Since young Master Yun has asked you to take a seat, then sit down. I believe young Master Yun will tell you about the other matters." 7th great-uncle nodded at them and took the lead to sit on one of the chairs. After the 7th great-uncle sat down, the rest of the blind warriors also walked to the side of the chairs and sat down. Although he knew that he was trapped in Shi Yun's array formation, Tang Ao did not think too much about it. With the means of Shi Huanyun, a muddy heavenly realm expert, if he wanted to deal with them, Tang Ao and the others would have already died many times over. But now Shi Tianyun did not attack them. Instead, he was very polite. Therefore, Tang Ao felt that Shi Tianyun must have something that he wanted to ask them for help. Moreover, this matter was certainly very important to Shi Yun. Otherwise, how could Shi Yun, a dignified chaotic heaven stage powerhouse, lower himself to talk to a body refining stage ant like him? Since you are the people chosen by 7th great-uncle, then I will get straight to the point. According to my original plan, I would have sent you out of the hidden dragon cave after 10 years. Then, I would have used the array formation to blow up the hidden dragon cave. You should have come into contact with the so-called array formation. Right now, we are surrounded by a spatial array formation. What Tang Ao didn't expect was that Shi Yun would actually say such words. Moreover, Shi Yun's attitude was extremely polite. Chapter 1321. Although Shi Yun's cultivation might not be as high as Mingdi's, he was still a heavenly muddy realm expert. Seeing such an expert speaking to a few body refining realm ants in such a friendly manner, Tang Ao didn't feel happy. Instead, he only felt a wave of bitterness. Although Shi Yun hadn't said anything, Tang Ao was sure that Shi Yun had something to ask of them. From Shi Yun's attitude, Tang Ao could see that this matter was very important to Shi Yun. At the same time, it must be very difficult. Otherwise, there was no need for Shi Yun to gather such a group of people here. For Shi Tingyun, a powerhouse at the heavenly muddy stage, these ants might not be a big deal. However, Tang Ao knew that if these 9 people were to appear in the outside world, they might turn the entire Flying Star continent upside down. After entering Shi Yun's thatched cottage, the blind expert, the female martial artist called Second Mother, and the remaining 2 martial artists who hadn't spoken revealed their true cultivation. Their cultivation concealment methods were extremely high. Previously, they had even deceived Tang Ao's soul remembrance. Moreover, Tang Ao didn't believe that this tiny flying star continent had any cultivation concealment methods that he couldn't discover. Therefore, Tang Ao didn't use his heavenly polar pupils to observe these people. However, Tang Ao had clearly miscalculated. These martial artists were all at the 9th level of the body refining realm. As for Zhongshan, he was still at the 7th level of the body refining realm. As for Tang Ao and the other 2, they were still at the 5th level of the body refining realm. This is the heavenly essence technique. In the future, you will cultivate this cultivation technique. After saying those words, Shi Yun threw 4 jade slips in front of Tang Ao and the others. The jade slips didn't have any essence chi fluctuations. Moreover, Shi Yun's body also didn't have any essence chi fluctuations. However, these jade slips were floating in front of them. Tang Ao didn't hesitate too much. He picked up the jade slips and swept his soul remembrance inside. With just a glance, Tang Ao was stunned. Because Tang Ao had seen this cultivation technique before. It was the mysterious heaven skill that Tang Ao had cultivated in his previous life. It was just that the mysterious heaven technique absorbed and refined spiritual energy, but now, the heavenly essence technique in Tang Ao's hands had been transformed by Shi Yun into a cultivation method for cultivating vitality. Right now, Tang Ao and the rest of them were only at the body refining realm, but even if this martial art had been modified, it was still a top astral reaching realm martial art. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a body refining realm martial artist to come into contact with such a high-level cultivation technique in their lifetime. However, Shi Yun had casually taken out such a top-notch cultivation technique. You little guys, hurry up and thank young Master Yun. This technique is very precious. I've never seen such a magical technique in all the time I've spent in the Flying Star Continent and the Hidden Dragon Cave. 50 years ago, my lifespan was nearing its end. At that time, I met shitting young Master Yun. After shitting young Master Yun imparted this technique to me, I managed to raise my cultivation level from the body refining realm level 8 to the body refining realm level 9 overnight. Now that everyone was standing on the same side, 7th Uncle naturally wouldn't hide anything from them. Moreover, what 7th Uncle had learned from Shi Yun was not just this. There were even more things that he didn't dare to imagine. However, 7th Uncle knew that since Shi Yun had called Tang Ao and the rest over, he would definitely tell them these things personally. Therefore, 7th Uncle didn't say much. Chapter 1322. Situ Qianqian and the other 2 might not believe it, but Tang Ao was sure about it. Even if there was a fairy weapon in the Evergreen Valley, Tang Ao did not think that there would be such a high-rank martial art in the Flying Star Continent. The mysterious heaven art that Tang Ao had was only an incomplete volume, but Tang Ao had only relied on that incomplete volume to reach the peak of astral reaching realm level 9. According to the first volume in Tang Ao's hand, the mysterious heaven art had a second volume and a third volume. However, in his previous life, Tang Ao had not found the second volume and the second volume even after he had fallen. He had not even heard any news about them. Right now, this Heaven Yuan spell that Shi Tianyun had modified was also based on the first volume of the mysterious heaven art. Although Shi Tianyun had modified the martial art all the way to the Sea of Souls realm, Tang Ao knew that even with such a powerful martial art, it would still be impossible to reach the Sea of Souls realm with just Yuan Qi alone. It was not because Shi Tianyun's modified martial art was not good, but because Yuan Qi was too weak. If he only trained with Yuan Qi, Tang Ao was not even sure if he could reach the origin martial realm with Yuan Qi alone. However, there was only Yuan Qi in this place. If Tang Ao could not use Yuan Qi to reach the origin martial realm, then Tang Ao's peak state in the Flying Star continent would only be the peak of body refining realm level 9. Shi Tianyun, as the saying goes, one should not receive a reward without doing anything. The four of us have not done anything, yet we have already received such a huge favor from you. I wonder if Shi Tianyun has any instructions for us? After getting the martial art, Zhong Shan hesitated for a long time. However, after reading the description of the martial art that once he reached the Sea of Souls realm, he would be able to regrow his broken limbs, Zhong Shan was moved. He had only lost his arm not long ago, but Zhong Shan had already felt a deep discomfort. Plus, through this martial art, Zhong Shan had opened a new door of martial arts in front of him. This warrior, who had always been a gentleman, had also become greedy at this moment. At this time, not to mention that Shi Yun was willing to give him the Heavenly Essence technique. Even if Shi Yun was not willing to give him the Heavenly Essence technique, Zhong Shan would never hand it over. The others didn't notice Zhong Shan's strange expression, but Shi Tingyun and Tang Ao, who had been paying attention to everyone's expression, saw it. After seeing Zhong Shan's expression, Shi Yun nodded in satisfaction. The more greedy a cultivator was, the easier it was to control them. On the contrary, Tang Ao's group of 3 surprised Shi Yun. However, there was not much change in his expression. Just as Tang Ao thought, Shi Tingyun really did not take mere body refinement realm ants to heart. However, the Flying Star continent was the Tao world of the Divine King Yunxing. The Tao world law of the Divine King Yunxing did not allow Spirit Qi to exist. Even though Divine King Yunxing had been dead for tens of thousands of years, his nomological Tao connotation still affected this space. Shi Yun originally thought that after his cultivation had reached the heavenly muddy realm, he would no longer be suppressed by the nomological Tao connotation of the Divine King Yunxing. Therefore, he had not hesitated to chase the 3-headed flood dragon to this place. Now that 10,000 years had passed, he did not know what had happened to the 3-headed flood dragon, but Shi Yun had been trapped in the Flying Star continent for 10,000 years. If he had not found the Evergreen Valley and discovered some interesting things in the Evergreen Valley, Shi Yun felt that he, a dignified heavenly muddy realm expert, would not have been able to avoid the exhaustion of his lifespan and eventually perish. Although Tang Ao saw that Shi Yun's eyes were flickering with contemplation, Tang Ao did not know what Shi Yun was thinking. Young Master Shi, you said that the plan would be implemented in 3 years. May I know what it is? Although Tang Ao did not want to attract Shi Yun's attention, Tang Ao still had to ask this question. Chapter 13:23. Shi Yun faintly smiled. This time, I was also prepared to tell you about this matter. After seeing the heavenly origin technique, I'm sure you already know that above the body refining realm and the origin martial realm, there is still a realm called the Spirit Sea realm. In fact, there are many realms above the Spirit Sea realm. However, because there is no spiritual energy in the Flying Star continent, martial artists can only stop at the origin martial realm. As Shi Yun spoke till here, a soul remembrance image was instantly projected in front of Tang Ao and the others. It was an image of a martial artist's battle. In this image, many martial artists were fighting in a scarlet space. There were many continents in the surroundings of this space, but the aftermath of these experts' battle could easily destroy a plane similar to the Flying Star continent. Even if Chun Nanchi and the others didn't know much about the outside world, this image was still very moving. There was longing, shock, helplessness, graveness, unwillingness, and all kinds of complicated emotions continuously changing on everyone's faces. This image seemed to have been created using some kind of special method. When Tang Ao looked at it again, he had a feeling that he was there. Looking at the experts' battle in the distance, it seemed that as long as any expert carelessly leaked a trace of the battle's aftermath, they would immediately turn into ashes. Coincidentally, at this time, a huge fireball that blotted out the sun was casually thrown out by a red-clothed expert. As this fireball flew out, cracks appeared in the space. Some of the surrounding low-level planes were instantly incinerated by this terrifyingly high temperature. And in the blink of an eye, the high temperature of the fireball arrived in front of Tang Ao and the others. Situ Qianqian miserably screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. The others were also so scared that they couldn't move. Tang Ao's complexion also changed. That huge fireball just now was really too real. Moreover, Tang Ao also knew that there were actually so many experts in this world. Those martial artists in the image just now, without exception, were all peak experts of the heavenly muddy stage. Tang Ao reckoned that Shi Yun had seen this scene with his own eyes. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Shi Yun to make this scene so real. As you can see, in front of a true expert, not to mention a mere origin realm cultivator, even the entire flying star continent would be destroyed in an instant. This time, even Tang Ao didn't have any objection to Shi Yun's words. However, what Tang Ao didn't know was that Shi Tingyun was talking big this time. If he really had the ability to shatter the flying star continent, he wouldn't have needed to take the risk of escaping into the flying star continent to chase after the three-headed flood dragon. In terms of volume, even if it was a vast continent, Shi Tingyun would have been able to shatter it at his peak. Unfortunately, the flying star continent was protected by Divine Monarch Yun Xing's nomological Tao. Even though Divine Monarch Yun Xing had been dead for tens of thousands of years, he still couldn't shake the flying star continent. Junior Sister Qianqian, are you okay? Tang Ao extended his hand to support the trembling Situ Qianqian. Tang Ao released the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul to help Situ Qianqian stabilize her chaotic aura. Just now, when Situ Qianqian was watching the image that Shi Nwanyan summoned out, her mind was in turmoil, which caused the essence qi in her body to flow in reverse. Chapter 1324. However, Tang Ao and the others were martial artists who had experienced countless life and death situations, so the feeling just now wasn't as intense as Situ Qianqian's. After calming down, Situ Qianqian also cast a grateful gaze at Tang Ao. In that instant, Situ Qianqian felt as if she was suffocating. Fortunately, when that feeling appeared, a strong and sturdy arm protected her, and soon after, a cool and refreshing feeling spread throughout her body. Situ Qianqian had a good impression of Tang Ao, but it wasn't romantic. Tang Ao was like an older brother to her. Tang Ao naturally didn't know that many thoughts had flashed through this little girl's mind in a split second. Seeing that Situ Qianqian wasn't speaking, Tang Ao could only ask again, "Junior Sister Qianqian, are you all right?" Being asked by Tang Ao, Situ Qianqian was somewhat embarrassed. After angrily glancing at Tang Ao, Situ Qianqian turned her head away. When Second Mother saw Situ Qianqian's appearance, she immediately said in a gentle voice, "Hee, little girl, you've fallen in love." Second Mother was still sitting in a wheelchair after entering this thatched cottage. It seemed that her injuries were very serious. Or, it could be said that the flying star continent was too special. So, even Shi Yun, a powerhouse of the muddy heavenly realm, was helpless. However, what made Tang Ao speechless was that just as he had this thought, Shi Yun waved his hand and a jade box flew over from a distance. It was unknown what was inside the jade box, but Soul Remembrance couldn't detect it. If Tang Ao wanted to see it, he could use Heavenly Extreme Pupils to examine it. However, in front of Shi Yun, Tang Ao didn't dare to use heavenly extreme pupils. Second mother, this is a return of spring powder. In 3 days you should be able to stand up. Shi Yun felt very sullen. He was a grand celestial turbid realm emperor rank expert, but now he had fallen to the point where he needed a few puny body refining realm experts to do things for him. However, one had no choice but to lower one's head. This was Divine Monarch Yun's house. No matter how strong Shi Yun was, he was just an ant in front of an almighty like Divine Monarch Yun Xing. Young Master Shi, my medicine is done? The second mother was paralyzed after she was poisoned. Even Lu Yang, the divine physician of the Lu family's manor house, was helpless against this poison. The second mother was so disheartened that she was captured by the dragon prison fort and imprisoned in the dragon crouching cave. Now that her leg injury was healed, the second mother did not want to continue staying in this godforsaken place any longer. And at this moment Tang Ao frowned. There was a person standing not far away from them. Perhaps because Tang Ao's attention was mostly on Shi Yun, Tang Ao did not notice when this person had arrived. However, Tang Ao was sure that this person was not in the palace at the beginning. Currently, although the place where Tang Ao and the others were in was a palace, it was not as magnificent as an ordinary palace. The floor of this palace was made of a kind of stone that flickered with a dim brilliance. If one stared at it for a long time, it would cause one to feel dazzled. Even so, when Tang Ao saw this stone, his heart suddenly sobered up. Tang Ao discovered that he had been wrong from the beginning. Perhaps it was because Tang Ao was proficient in the array Dao. Therefore, when Shi Yun had said that this was the effect of an illusory array, Tang Ao had believed Shi Yun's words. Moreover, he had truly believed that this was an illusory array. Moreover, he had thought that Shi Yun's array Dao ability was too strong that he could not see the traces of an array formation. However, Tang Ao now understood that he was not mistaken. Chapter 1325. Some of you should know about this thing. Shi Tianyun's words pulled Tang Ao back from his thoughts. Tang Ao raised his head and saw an image. On the image, there were 8 different colored tags, but all of them were leaking out powerful auras. Although Tang Ao knew that these tags were not ordinary, Tang Ao really did not know what they were. Not only Tang Ao, even Zhong Shan and the other two had a confused look flash through their eyes. Obviously, even the 3 natives of the Flying Star continent did not know what these tags were. However, the 7th great-uncle thought for a while and said, I heard that hundreds of years ago, the ancestors of the 8 top powers found a mysterious altar at the top of the Flying Star cliff. Under the altar, there was a strange array and many treasures. Speaking up to here, the 7th great-uncle paused for a while, then continued, the ancestors of the 8 top powers used these treasures to create the 8 top powers that rule the Flying Star continent today. However, among these treasures, there are 8 tags that no one knows what they are used for. I have seen one of them in the Lu family. Tang Ao didn't expect that the origin of these 8 command tokens would turn out to be like this. However, Tang Ao knew that these 8 command tokens were certainly not that simple. Otherwise, a super powerhouse of heavenly muddy realm like Shi Yun wouldn't be interested in these 8 command tokens. Tang Ao thought to himself, if I were a sky realm warrior, I'm afraid that the thing I want to do every day after being trapped here is to leave this place. However, there were only 2 ways to leave this place. One was to use the Space Jade spell, and the other was to reach the peak of astral reaching realm level 9 and shatter the surreal space to leave. However, Tang Ao felt that neither of these 2 methods would work, because in this place, the Space Jade spell could not be used directly. It was as if there was an invisible power that had restricted this space. Secondly, if one only relied on Yuan Qi, reaching the origin martial realm would be the limit. Warriors like Tang Ao, who had the 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body, seemed to have some difficulties in reaching the origin martial realm. This did not mean that Tang Ao's physique was too weak. On the contrary, this was the heaven-defying aspect of the Nine Dragons Emperor's jade body. Martial artists with the Nine Dragons Emperor's jade body consumed more resources than ordinary martial artists. When breaking through to the next realm, warriors with the Nine Dragons Emperor's jade body needed a terrifying amount of resources. Compared to ordinary warriors, Tang Ao's cultivation resources might be several times or even dozens of times more than them. Therefore, with the density of the origin energy in the Flying Star continent, Tang Ao felt that it would be extremely difficult for him to break into the origin realm. Before, Tang Ao did not have any plans to break into the origin realm because with his methods, as long as he could reach the 9th level of the body refinement realm, he could do whatever he wanted in the Flying Star continent. However, after seeing Shi Yun at this moment, Tang Ao also restrained this thought. It seemed that he wasn't the only one who had come here from a high-level plane. Shi Yun had not only come from a high-grade plane, but he was also a chaotic heaven stage expert. Among all the living powerful warriors that Tang Ao had seen so far, this Shi Yun was the most powerful one. Tang Ao did not know why Shi Yun had come here, but since a powerful warrior like Shi Yun might be trapped here, then it was very likely that there were other astral reaching realm and yin-yang realm warriors here as well. Chapter 1326. Xiao Yu. When did you arrive? At this moment, 7th Great Uncle finally noticed the person standing in the corner. Tang Ao saw the astonished expressions of 7th Great Uncle and the others. Clearly, they recognized Xiao Yu. It wasn't just 7th Great Uncle. Even Situ Qianqian and the others seemed to recognize Xiao Yu. However, Situ Qianqian and the others' faces were full of shock. Big brother Xiao Yu, didn't something happen to you in Evergreen Valley? Situ Qianqian used her soul remembrance to scan Xiao Yu. After confirming that it was Xiao Yu, she asked in disbelief. Haha, junior sister Qianqian, long time no see. I didn't expect that even junior sister Qianqian would be chosen this time. Congratulations, junior sister. Xiao Yu said as he walked out of the shadows. He was wearing black clothes. His figure was slender and his steps were light. In such a quiet hall, not a single sound could be heard. When Xiao Yu walked closer, Shi Yunyun calmly said, "Sit." Hearing Shi Yunyun's words, Xiao Yu also sat down. After Xiao Yu sat down, Shi Yunyun continued. Xiao Yu's accidental death in Evergreen Valley was just a cover-up. In reality, Xiao Yu had already left Hidden Dragon Cave half a year ago to scout for information on Flying Star Continent. Tell me, what happened on Flying Star Continent during this period of time? Shi Yunyun spoke casually, but Tang Ao and the others were shocked. Tang Ao was a bit better because he knew that Shi Yunyun was once a Muddy Heaven Realm expert. Therefore, even if something happened that defied common sense, Tang Ao could barely accept it. However, the others' hearts were in a perilous state. The reason why they followed Shi Yunyun so casually was because they wanted to leave Hidden Dragon Cave. However, Hidden Dragon Cave security was tight, far surpassing everyone's imagination. Aside from Su Hongyi and Shadowless, the 4 peak experts at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, there was also an extremely powerful array protection. More than 10 years ago, a genius martial artist named Xiao Li had appeared in the Dragon Subduing Cave. This person had cultivated in the Dragon Subduing Cave for 11 years, and from an ordinary person, he had cultivated to the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm. Moreover, they were extraordinarily strong. Just like the Ho Tianxi brothers, they were invincible existences in the same realm. After cultivating to the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm, Shaoli was naturally unwilling to continue staying in the Hidden Dragon Cave. Thus, Xiao Yu led a group of martial artists who also wanted to leave the Hidden Dragon Cave and prepared to leave. Shadowless and Su Hongyi, who were guarding the Hidden Dragon Cave, were all defeated by Shaoli. But after Shaoli defeated everyone, he was still blocked by the array formation at the entrance of the hidden dragon cave. Everyone worked together to attack the array formation for a long time, but they were unable to break it. Later, the castle lord of Dragon Prison Castle arrived and killed Shaoli and his group. At that time, although Shaoli was almost invincible at the 9th level of the body refining realm, it was said that Shaoli didn't even last 3 moves against the Dragon Prison Castle lord before being defeated. However, after Shaoli was defeated, some people said that he was killed on the spot by the castle lord of the Dragon Prison Castle. Others said that the castle lord cherished talent and imprisoned him somewhere. But there was no way to verify this because after that incident, no one in the hidden dragon cave had seen Shaoli again. Therefore, now that they knew that Xiao Yu could actually leave the hidden dragon cave, 7th great uncle and the others were so shocked. Although their cultivation had already risen to the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm, they clearly didn't think that they were stronger than Shaoli back then. Speaking of Shaoli, 7th great uncle inadvertently glanced at Xiao Yu. Because coincidentally, that Shaoli was Xiao Yu's elder brother. It was just that 7th great uncle didn't understand why Shaoli didn't escape with this younger brother. Chapter 13:27. Up until now, the formations Tang Ao had seen in the hidden dragon crypt were all low and medium grade 1 formations. Tang Ao hadn't even seen a grade 2 formation. Thus, Tang Ao had once suspected that the formations on the Flying Star continent had stopped at the level of grade 1 spirit formations. However, this time Tang Ao was wrong. Perhaps the formation Dao of the martial artists on the Flying Star continent was still at the level of grade 1 spirit formations, but the formations on the Flying Star continent had far surpassed this level. If Tang Ao was lucky enough to see the restrictive formation at the entrance of the hidden dragon crypt, Tang Ao would be shocked to discover that it was a grade 6 immortal formation. However, after Tang Ao found out that Shi Yunyun had other methods to leave the hidden dragon crypt, Tang Ao was no longer interested in studying that grade 6 immortal formation. What Tang Ao wanted to do the most was to find a way to leave this place through Shi Yunyun's method. While Tang Ao was still pondering, Xiao Yu calmly said, "A lot of things have happened on the Flying Star continent in the past half a year, but none of them are important. Then pick the important ones." This time, it was the 7th great uncle who spoke. After he found out that Shi Yunyun had a way to leave the hidden dragon crypt, he could no longer sit still. Now, the 7th great uncle really didn't want to stay in the hidden dragon crypt for even a moment longer. With the heavenly Yuan technique taught by Shi Yunyun, cultivating to the origin martial realm was only a matter of time. However, in the hidden dragon crypt, everyone was cultivating as if they had been injected with chicken blood. The origin energy was so thin that it made people want to bang their heads against the wall. Cultivating here was really too slow, way too slow. Moreover, wanting to obtain an essence-augmenting pill here was like ascending to the heavens. With his cultivation at the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm, let alone a mere mid-grade essence-augmenting pill, even a high-grade essence-augmenting pill could be easily obtained by him. The more he thought about it, the more urgent the 7th great uncle wanted to leave this place. In terms of major events, there are only 3 that can be considered major. Xiao Yu didn't mind Chen Nanqi's attitude. Although his strength was far above Chen Nanqi's seniority was still there. At this moment, Chen Nanqi was talking to him like a senior talking to a junior. The first major event is that the Murong family, which used to be one of the 8 great forces, has been on the decline since a year ago. Half a year ago, they were kicked out of the ranks of the 8 great forces. The new Duan family has taken over the Murong family's original position. Chen Nanqi and the others fell silent after Xiao Yu said this. The affairs of the world were impermanent, and the vicissitudes of life changed greatly. They did not expect that the situation on the Flying Star continent would change so much while they were trapped here. If Tang Ao still had some doubts about whether Xiao Yu had really left the hidden dragon cave, Tang Ao was certain now. When Tang Ao first came to the Flying Star continent, he was saved by the second daughter of the Murong family, Murong Xian. Thinking of Murong Xian, Tang Ao couldn't help but worry about her. This girl was too pure and kind. As the direct descendant of the family, she had been suppressed and excluded by the people of the concubine's bloodline. Originally, Tang Ao wanted to help her after his cultivation recovered. In the end, Tang Ao was trapped in the hidden dragon crypt. Tang Ao also remembered his agreement with Murong Xian. Back then, Tang Ao borrowed a bottle of mid-grade essence augmenting pill from Murong Xian and said that he would return it after a month. Chapter 1328. Tang Ao was different from Chen Nanqi. Chen Nanqi felt that the natural yuan qi in the outside world was denser than in the hidden dragon cave, so his training speed would be faster. However, Tang Ao knew that because he had the 9 Dragon Emperor's jade body, the natural yuan qi in the outside world was far from enough for Tang Ao. Therefore, if Tang Ao wanted to increase his cultivation quickly, he could only rely on the vitality-raising pill. However, all pills contained pill toxins. Tang Ao used the vitality-raising pill to increase his cultivation, so pill toxins were unavoidable. However, for Tang Ao, who had the Jade Bone Life Spirit, pill toxins did not exist at all. Because the Jade Bone Life Spirit could completely refine the pill toxins, they would not cause any trouble for Tang Ao. Therefore, Tang Ao decided that he still had to go to the Evergreen Valley as soon as possible. After all, what you hear is false. Seeing is believing. Only by going to the Evergreen Valley himself would he know what was going on there. Moreover, the vitality-raising pill was the most important training resource in the Flying Star continent. Even outside the hidden dragon cave, the spirit plants needed to make it would not be easy to find. Chen Nanqi and the rest were all at the peak of astral reaching realm level 9, which was already one of the top martial artists in the Flying Star continent. However, Tang Ao was only a body refining realm level 5 martial artist. In the Flying Star continent, he would not be able to make any waves. Moreover, Tang Ao was not familiar with the Flying Star continent either. In the hidden dragon cave, Tang Ao had the spirit plants in the Evergreen Valley. But after leaving the hidden dragon crypt, Tang Ao really did not know where to go to find the spiritual herbs to refine the essence cultivating pill. Most importantly, Tang Ao did not rely on the yuan qi in the hidden dragon cave like other martial artists. When he first came to the hidden dragon cave, it was because Tang Ao's injuries were too severe, which was why he was in such a difficult situation. Now that Tang Ao's external injuries had completely recovered, that situation naturally did not exist anymore. Furthermore, Hai Fuyuan and the rest had even discovered a fragment of an immortal artifact in the Evergreen Valley. Therefore, Tang Ao deduced that the Evergreen Valley was not as simple as he had imagined. Moreover, although there were many warriors in the hidden dragon crypt, the range of activity of all the warriors was basically on the outskirts of the Evergreen Valley. Even the number of warriors who entered the central region of the Evergreen Valley were few and far between. As for the martial artists who had entered the depths of the Evergreen Valley, until now, Tang Ao had not heard of them. Of course, this was not because there were no martial artists who tried to enter the depths of the Evergreen Valley. It was because the martial artists who entered the depths of the Evergreen Valley never came out again. Hence, the depths of Evergreen Valley had always been a mystery to the martial artists of the hidden dragon crypt. Although many people were curious about the depths of the Evergreen Valley, when they thought about the fact that such a powerful martialist had entered the depths of the Evergreen Valley and never returned, they gave up on the idea. However, Tang Ao was different from these people. Tang Ao's soul remembrance was originally not something these martial artists could compare to. Adding on the fact that Tang Ao had the heavenly extreme pupils which could investigate the secrets of heaven and earth, when Tang Ao entered the Evergreen Valley, he would naturally investigate carefully. However, although Tang Ao did not immediately decide to leave the hidden dragon crypt, Tang Ao still really wanted to know how Xiao Yu had left the hidden dragon crypt. Not leaving now didn't mean that Tang Ao would not leave in the future. Although Tang Ao did not place the restriction array at the entrance of the hidden dragon crypt in his eyes, one more method meant one more choice. If Xiao Yu's method of leaving the hidden dragon crypt was easy, Tang Ao naturally would not refuse. Chapter 1329. When Tang Ao heard the name Murong Jie, he was stunned for a moment. Then he remembered that Murong Jie was Murong Xian's grandfather. According to Murong Xian, the Murong family had fallen to such a state because his grandfather and father had been injured by evil people when they went out to do something. His grandfather had died on the spot to cover his father's retreat. His father had also suffered heavy injuries and his cultivation had decreased greatly. He had been at the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm, but now he was at the 7th level. Previously, Tang Ao did not have a deep understanding of this. However, after seeing 7th great-uncle and the other 5 martial artists at the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm, Tang Ao understood the situation the Murong family was in. The Murong family was one of the top 8 forces in the Feixing continent. However, the leader of the family had decreased greatly in cultivation. He was only at the 7th level of the body refining realm. How could he maintain his position as the overlord? It was not hard for Tang Ao to imagine that the Murong family was in a state of being surrounded by a pack of wolves. As the saying went, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The Murong clan had ruled over an area of land for 800 years. Even though their strength had declined, due to the hard work of generations of masters, the Murong clan had accumulated a lot of wealth, cultivation resources, and precious treasures. Therefore, this was the time to divide the Murong family's treasures. At this time, the Murong family was a fat piece of meat that everyone wanted to take a bite out of. Murong Xian had saved his life before. At this time, Tang Ao should lend a helping hand. However, Tang Ao was only at the 5th level of the body refining realm. He had the will but not the strength. Tang Ao could only pray that the Murong family could hold on a little longer. Once his cultivation reached the 7th or 8th level of the body refining realm, if the Murong family still existed, Tang Ao would definitely lend a helping hand. With Tang Ao's methods, as long as his cultivation reached the 7th level of the body refining realm, there would be few who could match him in the body refining realm. Once his cultivation reached the 8th level of the body refining realm, it would not be a problem for him to defeat other body refining realm martial artists. Murong Jie. Xiao Yu was stunned for a moment when he heard the name Murong Jie. He then continued to speak. The Murong family's old master, Murong Jie, has passed away a year ago. Even Murong Jie's son, Murong Di, is on the verge of death. I met Murong Di a while ago. At this moment, Murong Di is only at the 7th level of the body refining realm, and his aura is very weak. Clearly, his injuries are very serious. Brother Xiao Yu, do you have any news about the second miss of the Murong family, Murong Xian? Even though Tang Ao knew that it was not a good time to ask about Murong Xian, she was still Tang Ao's savior. Tang Ao had always been a person who could clearly distinguish between gratitude and grudges. If he had remained indifferent even after knowing that Murong Xian was in danger, it would have gone against Tang Ao's Taoist heart. After hearing Tang Ao ask about Murong Xian, Xiao Yu smiled indifferently. Could it be that junior brother Tang Ao has some feelings for Miss Murong Xian? The reason why Xiao Yu asked this was because he just so happened to know about Murong Xian. However, Xiao Yu did not expect that Tang Ao, who had just joined them, would actually be involved with Morong Xian. I am greatly indebted to Miss Morong Xian. Please tell me, Brother Xiao Yu. Hearing Xiao Yu's tone, Tang Ao knew that Xiao Yu definitely knew about Morong Xian. Moreover, from Xiao Yu's tone, Tang Ao could vaguely tell that Morong Xian's current situation was very bad. Back then, Morong Xian had saved him. However, when they were about to leave, something big happened on Morong Xian's pleasure boat. Chapter 1330. At that time, Tang Ao had placed the blood essence in the storage ring, while Tang Ao's storage ring had been taken by Ding Kuei. Tang Ao clearly remembered that the bald man called Ding Kuei was only at the 5th layer of the body refining realm, the same cultivation as Tang Ao. At that time, Tang Ao was sure that if he met Ding Kuei again, he would beat him into a pig's head. In the storage ring, besides the blood essence, there was also a bottle of mid-grade vitality cultivating pills borrowed from Morong Xian. Although the storage ring had been taken by Ding Kuei, Tang Ao wasn't worried about the things in the storage ring at that time. The storage ring had a restriction that Tang Ao had personally set up. Even the sole remembrance of an origin martial realm martial artist couldn't break the restriction. Unless Tang Ao died, the sole remembrance restriction would be weakened. If it was just a bottle of mid-grade vitality cultivating pills, Tang Ao really wouldn't be interested in looking for Ding Kuei. However, the blood essence was obviously a good thing. Although Tang Ao couldn't use it, it was too much of a waste to leave it in the hands of a brute like Ding Kuei. Half a month ago, the eldest daughter of the multiple chain dock came to the Morong family because her pet, the three-tailed blood civet, was injured. As far as I know, the Morong family didn't have much to do with the matter, but the Shangguan family. However, unlike the Morong family, the Shangguan family is now in a state of prosperity, so the multiple chain dock doesn't dare to offend the Shangguan family. They can only vent their anger on the Morong family. After hearing Xiao Yu's words, Tang Ao's heart thumped. Sure enough, what he feared had come true. Lu Rian didn't look for trouble with Shangguan Fei, but went to make things difficult for Morong Xian. It could be said that the incident with the three-tailed blood civet was completely caused by Shangguan Fei. Shangguan Fei said that he caught the three-tailed blood civet when it was unguarded. However, he knew that he could not handle the three-tailed blood civet on his own. Hence, he brought the three-tailed blood civet to Morong Xian's pleasure boat. After all, the three-tailed blood civet cat was an infamous demonic beast. If Morong Xian and the others had not attacked and wounded the three-tailed blood civet cat, the people on the pleasure boat would have been eaten by it. The young lady of the multiple chain dock, Lu Rian, asked the Morong family to hand over Morong Xian to her. She also asked the Morong family to return the blood essence forced out from the three-tailed blood civet. However, the Morong family refused, saying that the blood chi essence was not in their hands. As for injuring the three-tailed blood civet, the Morong clan is willing to compensate us. Without waiting for Xiao Yu to continue, Shi Tianyun, who had been silent all this while, asked, "Is this the blood chi essence you mentioned?" As Shi Tianyun spoke, a scene appeared in front of everyone. In this scene, there was a stone as red as blood. This stone was the size of a baby's fist, and its whole body was bright red and transparent. It was almost the same as the blood chi essence that Tang Ao had obtained in the past. Seeing the scene in Shi Tianyun's hand, as well as her slightly excited expression, Tang Ao realized that the blood chi essence that Ding Kuei had snatched away was not as simple as it seemed. If the blood chi essence was just an ordinary treasure, it would not have been able to attract the attention of a Muddy Heaven stage expert like Shi Tianyun. Chapter 1331. After a moment of silence, Xiao Yu said, "According to my investigation, this blood chi essence should be in the hands of Shangguan Fei or Tai Longqing. I haven't seen this blood chi essence with my own eyes, but according to the description of the people who saw it, it seems to look like this. Yes. After hearing Xiao Yu's answer, Shi Yun nodded. I see. Continue. Although the multiple chain doc always wanted Murong Xian, the Murong family had a very unyielding attitude and wanted to protect her. Although the Murong family has declined, the multiple chain doc was afraid that if they forced the Murong family to a dead end, the Murong family would fight to the death. Although the Murong family is definitely not the multiple chain doc's opponent, the multiple chain doc didn't want the Murong family to bite back before they died. After a pause, Xiao Yu continued, so the multiple chain doc demanded a large amount of property from the Murong family. They also wanted the Murong family to hand over the blood chi essence after 3 months. Although the Murong family repeatedly argued that the blood chi essence wasn't in their hands, they still agreed. When I left the Murong manor, it was already in chaos. I don't know what the current situation is. After listening to Xiao Yu, Tang Ao was even more worried about Murong Xian's safety. However, even if he went to the Murong family now, he wouldn't be able to help. His cultivation was still too low. Right now, not to mention Origin Realm martial artists and Body Refinement Realm martial artists in the 9th level, even if it was a martial artist in the 8th level of the Body Refinement Realm, Tang Ao did not dare to say he could take them down. Judging from the Murong family's current situation, it was likely that the 8 supreme forces and some cultivators with slightly higher cultivations were all eyeing the Murong family. At a time like this, even if Tang Ao wanted to save Murong Xian from the Murong family, it would not be an easy task. Not to mention helping the Murong family get through this crisis. Thinking of this, Tang Ao was even more eager to enter the Evergreen Valley. As long as he could find enough spiritual herbs in the Evergreen Valley, Tang Ao would be able to concoct a large number of essence cultivating pills. With the help of the large amount of essence chi in the essence cultivating pills, Tang Ao would be able to raise his cultivation level in a short period of time. As long as Tang Ao's cultivation could rise to the 7th level of the Body Refining Realm, Tang Ao was confident that he could rescue Murong Xian from the Murong family. And once Tang Ao's cultivation could rise to the 9th level of the Body Refining Realm, Tang Ao could even guarantee that the Murong family would survive this crisis. However, it was meaningless to talk about this now because Tang Ao hadn't even been to Evergreen Valley yet, let alone find the spirit herbs to refine the vitality cultivating pill. Tang Ao had already decided to go to Evergreen Valley to take a look the next morning. Tang Ao believed that as long as the Evergreen Valley had the spiritual herbs to refine the essence cultivating pill, there was no reason why he couldn't find it. As for now, it was better to listen to what had happened outside the dragon subduing caves, and understand how Xiao Yu had avoided the guards of the dragon prison castle and entered the dragon subduing caves. Thank you, Brother Xiao Yu, for telling me. May I know what the other 2 major events are? Xiao Yu had said that 3 major events had happened in the Feixing continent during this period of time. The first was the change in the structure of the Feixing continent and the decline of the Murong family. Now, Tang Ao also wanted to know what the other 2 events were. Actually, the other 2 events can be said to be the same thing. A few months ago, the only son of the Feixing Alliance's leader, Lu Xingjin, saved an extraordinary girl from the River of Forgetfulness cliff. Although that girl was a mortal girl who couldn't cultivate, she had an unparalleled beauty that could cause the downfall of cities and countries. Lu Xingjin, who had never been close to women and was obsessed with martial arts, hung around this girl all day long. However, he still couldn't move Miss Chu Xuehan's heart. Ha ha ha, even heroes have a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. Chapter 1332. However, Tang Ao didn't relax for long. His complexion turned serious once again. At this time, Xiao Yu said, several months ago, Lu Xingjin saved Miss Chu from the Forgotten River cliff. Since then, he has been following Miss Chu closely. At first, Lu Chuanjia didn't agree to this marriage because Miss Chu couldn't cultivate. However, seeing that Lu Xingjin was too infatuated with Chu Xuehan, he had no choice but to agree in the end. Hearing Xiao Yu's words, Tang Ao's complexion turned bitter. It seemed that it was just as he had thought. Martial artists from other planes couldn't use the world essence energy of the Flying Star continent to cultivate. Whether it was a chaotic heaven stage expert like Shi Yun or Chu Xuan. After coming here, the spirit energy would scatter and they would become ordinary people. The only difference was that Shi Yun's thatched cottage was somewhat formidable. Tang Ao could feel that Shi Yun could use spirit energy in this thatched cottage. However, he didn't know why, but Shi Yun wasn't very willing to use the spirit energy in this thatched cottage. When Shi Yun used the spirit energy here, he only used it to create an illusion. However, the strange thing is that Miss Chu Xuehan seems to have a sweetheart. No matter how hard Lu Xingjin pursued her, Miss Chu didn't agree. Therefore, Lu Chuanjia and Miss Chu Xuehan agreed that 3 months later, at the summit of the Flying Star Cliff, all the young talents of the Flying Star continent would have a competition. Miss Chu must marry whoever comes out on top. At the same time, the person who comes out on top will also be the next leader of the Flying Star Alliance. Therefore, the remaining 2 matters can be said to be the same. Xiao Yu had clearly inquired about this matter in the outside world. Now, he was also very clear about this matter. After hearing that Chu Xuehan was being forced to marry, Tang Ao became angry. However, Tang Ao didn't erupt in anger. Instead, he forced himself to calm down. The current Tang Ao was no longer a newbie who had just arrived at the Flying Star continent and didn't know anything about it. Therefore, Tang Ao knew that the place where Chu Xuehan was now was called the Lu Residence. In other places, the Lu Residence was just an ordinary name. But in the Feixing continent, the Lu Residence was a symbol of power. About half of the top 10 experts on the Flying Star continent belonged to the Lu clan. The Lu clan accounted for 30% of the martial artists at the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm on the Flying Star continent. If Tang Ao was at his peak, these things would not be worth mentioning at all. But now, Tang Ao didn't know how long it had been since he was at his peak. That's about all that has happened in the outside world during this period of time. The rest are all trivial matters, so I won't go into details, said Xiao Yu after thinking for a moment. Master Yun, since Xiao Yu can go out, In fact, the 7th great-uncle was not very concerned about the situation outside. Not only him, but the others were also the same. Compared to the situation outside, they were more interested in finding out how to leave this place. To some martial artists with mediocre aptitude and average cultivation, the dragon-subduing crypt could very well be a very good place. Chapter 1333. After 7th great-uncle asked how to leave the hidden dragon crypt, Tang Ao also looked at Shi Yun. Although Tang Ao was confident that the so-called forbidden formation at the entrance of the hidden dragon crypt could not trap him, under such circumstances, if there was a more convenient method, Tang Ao naturally would not refuse. However, Tang Ao guessed that since Shi Yun needed these people to do things for him, Shi Yun would not easily reveal the method to leave the hidden dragon crypt. Sure enough, Shi Yun smiled indifferently and said, "You will naturally know about this in the future. For now, you may withdraw." "Young Master Shi, why can't we know the method to leave the hidden dragon crypt?" Next to 7th great-uncle, a somewhat lean old man finally could not hold back and asked. This old man and the person in front of him were clearly twin brothers. Both their appearances and auras were very similar. While this old man was interrogating Shi Yun, the other person's aura also pressed down on Shi Yun. Impudent! Seeing this scene, Xiao Yu instantly stood up. His surging aura spread out as he faced the Wang brothers. Ah, Xiao Yu, if you can leave by yourself, then you are in cahoots with this surnamed Sure. Never mind, since you have already left the hidden dragon crypt, it is the same if you tell us the method to leave. The Wang brothers had been trapped in the hidden dragon crypt for a longer time than seventh great-uncle and the others, so they knew the fierceness of the hidden dragon crypt. It was also because of this that the Wang brothers didn't join in when Shaoli appeared out of nowhere. Because the Wang brothers knew better than anyone that Shaoli was courting death. Later on, the Wang brothers met Shi Yun. Because Shi Yun was too mysterious and knew many secrets that ordinary people did not know, the Wang brothers gradually decided to rely on Shi Yun. Later on, Shi Yun deduced the heavenly Yuan technique, which allowed the Wang brothers' cultivation speed to advance by leaps and bounds. The two of them were even more in admiration of Shi Yun. Now that they saw Xiao Yu successfully leave the hidden dragon crypt, the two of them understood that their judgment was correct. Shi Yun really had the means to leave this damned place. Compared to other things, the two of them were most interested in how to leave this place. However, Shi Yun was unwilling to talk about this most important matter. The Wang brothers had received too much kindness from Shi Tianyun over the years. At this moment, when Shi Tianyun did not reciprocate their kindness, the two of them immediately erupted. While the Wang brothers and Shi Huanyun were confronting each other, Second Mother took a glance at seventh granduncle. Tang Ao sensed a weak soul remembrance fluctuation between the two of them. Clearly, the two of them were communicating about something. Tang Ao didn't know what the two of them were talking about, but Shi Tianyun heard it very clearly. Just as Tang Ao had imagined, this thatched hut was, in fact, the place where Shi Huanyun cultivated. Although Shi Yunyun's immortal essence energy had been completely dispersed, he could still use immortal essence energy to a certain extent in this thatched cottage. This was also the reason why Shi Yun had dared to gather so many experts at the 9th layer of the body refining realm, even though he couldn't use his immortal essence force. Are you all that anxious to know how to leave this place? At this time, Shi Tianyun also looked at the Wang brothers and said with a calm voice. Chapter 1334. Just now, Tang Ao had already discovered that Shi Yun seemed to be able to use a bit of spiritual power here. Tang Ao felt that apart from Li Qing, no one here was blind, so they should be able to feel it. Although Li Qing was blind, his perception was even sharper, so he should be able to feel the fluctuations of spiritual power here. What if I don't say it? When Shi Yun, who had always been gentle and refined, said these words, his voice revealed a terrifying chill. However, the Wang brothers believed that they knew Shi Yun very well, so they did not take Shi Yun's threat seriously. The one with the surname Shi, we are giving you face by calling you young Master Shi. You should know what's good for you. We brothers have followed you for so many years, so how could we not understand you? Don't try to scare us. If you know what's good for you, then quickly tell us the method to leave the hidden dragon cave, otherwise, don't blame us brothers for being impolite. That's really a pity, Shi Yun said and waved his sleeve. Immediately, an incomparably mysterious fluctuation suddenly swept towards the Wang brothers. Tang Ao could feel that this fluctuation was very light, it was really just a gentle wave of his sleeve. However, Tang Ao was shocked to discover that under this casual wave of Shi Yun's, everyone's body was bound by an invisible force. Tang Ao used all the strength in his body, wanting to move a bit. However, Tang Ao found that he could not move at all. At the same time, a breeze blew on the Wang brothers' body. The two of them did not even have the chance to scream and turned into ashes. Moreover, the breeze didn't stop even after turning the Wang brothers into ashes. Instead, it continued to blow towards Tang Ao. Tang Ao was shocked. At this moment, Tang Ao was completely bound by Shi Yun, so much so that Tang Ao could not even sense the primal chaos 6 light mirror. Although Tang Ao considered himself to be extraordinary, Tang Ao did not think that he would be able to withstand the breeze that Shi Tingyun had casually sent out. That was because the disparity in strength between the two of them was just too big. It was like a heavenly moat. Tang Ao was only at the 5th level of the body refining realm, while Shi Yun was a celestial turbid realm powerhouse. Although Tang Ao knew that powerhouses did not need a reason to kill, if he died like this, Tang Ao would still feel that he had died unjustly. Because after entering this thatched hut, Tang Ao did not offend Shi Yun at all. Therefore, Shi Yun did not have any reason to kill him. However, just as the breeze was about to blow in front of Tang Ao suddenly felt his body loosen. Immediately, a miserable scream came out. Tang Ao turned his head to look and saw the breeze blowing towards Chen Nanchi. Under that breeze, Chen Nanchi saw his own arm turn into dust. After crippling Chen Nanchi's arm, Shi Yun asked in a calm voice, "Now you don't doubt my strength?" Hearing Shi Yun's words, Chen Nanchi and Second Mother immediately knelt down in fear. Just now, the two of them had sent a sound transmission, saying that they wanted to see Shi Yun's strength. If Shi Yun really did not have any cultivation, then they would force him to reveal the method to leave the hidden dragon cave. In the end, the two of them thought that they were secretive, but Shi Yun could clearly hear their conversation. If Chen Nanchi still had doubts about Shi Yun's strength before, then at this moment, he no longer had any doubts. However, Chen Nanchi still could not understand why a powerhouse among powerhouses like Shi Yun would look for them. However, at this moment, Chen Nanchi was not in the mood to think about this. The scene of Chen Nanchi killing the Wang brothers in a flash was still very clear in Chen Nanchi's mind. Moreover, he had felt the pain of his left arm being pulverized just now very deeply. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.